Okay, members, it's 18:30 hours. Good evening all and welcome to the Western Area Planning Committee. I am Phil Barnett, the chairman of the Western Area Committee. Other members of the committee joining me this evening, to my left, Councillor Adrian Abbs, Councillor Denise Gaines, Councillor Paul Dick, Councillor Tony Vickers, Councillor Nigel Foote, Councillor Anthony Amritharaj and Councillor Howard Williston. We tonight have benefited with the expertise of a variety of officers, which is probably unusual for the amount that we've actually got from different areas of the council. These will obviously be advising and supporting the meeting. And the officers are as follows. To my right, Development Manager Bob Dray. Over to my far left is Paul Goddard, Highways Development Control Team Leader. Next door to, in fact, next but one is Lauren Hill, Senior Planning Officer. And to my left, I have the Legal Advisor, Sarah House. Also onto my far right is Shayhan Kirby, Senior Planning Officer. We've also got Fionn members, Greenslade, who's Senior Ecologist. And next door to him, we have John Thomas, who's Senior Tree Officer. And I'm sure they're all going to be supporting us in the best way they can in the areas which we need advice and answers to various questions. Also, of course, we've got Sam Childerton. Where's Sam? Over to my far left, the clerk, and to my far left in the corner is Gordon Oliver, the Zoom host. Before we start this evening's meeting, I would like to take the opportunity to remind members that we are subject to the Council's Code of Conduct, which requires us to uphold certain standards, including, importantly, respect. Members across the chamber might not always agree with one another, but I would ask that in our disagreements, we endeavour to always be respectful of other views. Now, if we do hear the evacuation alarm this evening, we must leave the building immediately. Please proceed via a safe emergency exit, and you'll see the exit routes which are above the various different doors to this chamber. And the exit route, we will follow any instructions given by officers, and then go to the assembly point, which is in the car park of the Dolphin Pub. Nevertheless, if the lockdown alarm sounds, we will remain seated and await instruction from officers. We will then adjourn the meeting until such a time it is safe to proceed. Do members have any questions about the way the meeting will be conducted before we start? Okay. Right, item 1, apologies.
Thanks, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor Clive Hooker.
Sorry, Councillor.
Clive Hooker.
Clive, you've got, I was a bit worried you didn't actually have him down. Okay, because it's obviously not listed, but I know he did actually mention to the department that he wouldn't be able to come in this week. Thanks very much. Then moving on to item 2, and we've got 2 sets of minutes. The one is obviously a formality because it was attached to the AGM of the council. So can I have a proposer for the minutes on the 15th? Councillor Williston, seconded by Councillor Gaines. All in favour? And then moving on to the Western Area Planning meeting of the 21st of May. Any comments on the minutes? Councillor Williston.
Sorry, Chairman, I did send apologies, but I also organised a sub in Councillor Bennyworth, which isn't mentioned.
Okay. So you just want him just listed? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. With that amendment, can I have a proposal then? Yes, Councillor Gaines and Councillor Dick seconded it. All those in favour that are present? Thank you very much. And obviously, your case, were you present? Oh,
Abstaining because.
you're abstaining. Okay, fair enough. Thanks very much. Cheers. Right, then we're now moving on, obviously, to declarations of interest. So if I go around the room, start with Councillor Abbs.
Yes, just to clear, I've been lobbied on the application to do with the wedding venue.
The same, Chair. I've been lobbied on the Welford item.
Councillor Dick.
Apologies. Yeah, I have been lobbied, but I need to say it's by the ward member. So I felt I needed to put that in record, and he knew I was going to say that on behalf of the applicant for the wedding venue.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll take you last, Councillor Vickers, because I think you've got quite a few things to say. So Councillor Williston.
Been left out, not been lobbied at all.
Councillor Amsraj.
Yes, Chairman, the same lobbied by the ward councillor, Councillor Vickers for the Welford Park application. Thank you.
Councillor Foot.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say I'm Heritage Champion for West Berkshire Council. The second thing I'd like to say is that I'm portfolio holder for Countryside, and I have been in email communication with our senior tree officer and also the executive director for environment on item 2, which is the wedding venue. And finally, I have visited the site with Councillor Vickers some months ago, quite a long time ago, and I have been lobbied as well on that item. Thank you.
Thank you. And then moving on to Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I start with the usual conflict of interest in that I am the council's rep on the North Wessex Downs National Landscape Council of Partners, and currently its vice chair. So, in fact, all 3 items on tonight's agenda are in the North Wessex Downs National Landscape. And I will be speaking in the ward member slot on 2 of those, the first 2 indeed. And with your permission, Chairman, and in the interest of transparency, because I'm going to be moving seats and even leaving the room eventually tonight, I'd like to explain why, after item 1, the Hungerford Park solar array, I will leave this seat and move to the public gallery, as it were, although it's not much of a gallery, the public seats, until after the ward member's slot. I didn't intend to visit. I didn't intend, nor did I visit East Garston, item 3, and I haven't even read the agenda papers for it because I wasn't expecting to be on the committee. I had a substitute who at the last minute couldn't attend, so I wasn't going to be on this committee at all if there had been a substitute. But I am now here for the first item fully, the second item purely as a ward member, and not at all for the third item. And the reason I'm moving seats for the second item is I am predetermined, and as you've heard, I've been the one lobbying in support of the applicant on the Welford Park item. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think I have been advised that it might be appropriate on the application that you were concerned about. It might be better to actually leave the chamber if you're happy with that, because I think it would be transparent to the
Sorry,
rest
Chairman,
of
yeah,
the
I
committee.
wasn't following my script, actually. It says in front of me, I will leave the chamber after answering any questions as a ward member, and then I will leave the chamber so as not to influence the debates or even the questions to officers.
Thank you very much. From the chair, I was also lobbied by the ward member on the Welford application as well. So to move on, we're now obviously moving on to item 4.1. But before we obviously bring in officers on the application, which of course is 24/028110 stroke FUL MAJ Hungerford Park. I would like just for the benefit of anybody in the public gallery that might not have sat in at this procedure in the past, the procedure for the discussion will be as follows. Officers will present the application to the committee, after which the following groups might wish to make representations for a maximum of 5 minutes, and I will make sure that each speaker is aware after 4 minutes. So it starts with the parish and town council representatives, objectors, supporters, the applicant, or in the case it might be the agent as well, and then of course ward members. Then the committee members will have the opportunity to ask questions of clarification of the various speakers, and members that will then have the opportunity to ask questions of the officers. The committee will then debate the item before determining the application. So without further ado, I'm going to turn to Cheyenne Kirby, invite her to present the first application. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This application is for land to the north of Hungerford Footpath 21 and south of Cider Barn, Hungerford Park. Hungerford. This application seeks planning permission for the installation of 4,860 ground-mounted photovoltaic panels in an equine field. This will provide power to the commercial buildings within the grounds and to export to the local grid. This has been brought to committee due to member call-in. The application site lies within Hungerford Park. It's also outside of any settlement boundary and within the North Wessex Downs National Landscape. To the west of the site is a public right-of-way known as Hungerford 21-5. The proposal includes solar panels fitted with anti-glare film, along with associated works, including underground cabling, fencing, security cameras, inverters, transformer station, and battery storage system. The proposal for the solar array is to provide sustainable energy to Hungerford Park as well as the national grid. This in principle is supported by policy, however, it's subject to other considerations. Key considerations is the impact on the North Wessex Downs National Landscape. A landscape visual impact assessment was submitted, which assesses the proposal on the landscape. The proposal follows the landform and retains key features. Whilst it is noted there are small breaks in the surrounding vegetation, the visual impact is considered low and can be mitigated by additional planting. Proposed mitigation includes hedgerow enhancement, as well as wildflower seeding for biodiversity net gain and targeted tree planting. Further ecological enhancement measures which have been conditioned include 10 bird nesting boxes and 4 bat boxes. Concern has been raised from Hungerford Town Council regarding highways impact. However, since then, a site access route plan has been submitted and deemed acceptable by the highways officer, subject to a condition securing the access plan and with swept path analysis being submitted. The proposal also includes a temporary construction compound, which is located to the north within the Cider Barn forecourt. This is only for the construction works to be carried out. As you can see from the plan, there will be an office canteen, parking, and secure storage. Equipment will be housed within these large storage containers, or within these green utilitarian buildings in order to keep everything secure. So there are currently access points which are for tractors and other farm vehicles. There's 3 points located along the western boundary. This will have additional secondary hedgerow planting in order to reduce any visual impact from the public right-of-way, which is located to the west. There's also, which I'll show a photo on screen, there is an area to the south which also has a small gap, which could potentially have impact the views of the North Wessex Downs. However, this can be mitigated through strategic tree planting, which a landscape condition has also been recommended on the decision notice, in order to ensure that these will be native trees. To the southwestern corner, the existing hedgerow will be removed, just so further underground building works can take place, such as underground cabling. However, this again will be reinstated once this work has been complete, and to the access point in the southwest is where the transformer location will be. The green on the plan is to show additional wildflower planting, which is the light green around the transformer locations. On the screen now is the site access plan with Hungerford Park. Hopefully people can see this with the yellow pin. The blue route is the first access which should be used, but if there's an issue with this, then the red line is the secondary access point. These are photos from the site. This is the existing track to the east of the site. The solar array will be contained within the mesh fencing as shown on the left-hand side here, although the internal paddock fences will be removed. The outer one will remain. This is a photo across the site. The land levels will remain the same, and to the left of the screen you can see the cider barn, which is where the temporary compound, construction compound will be located. When I refer to the landscape visual impact assessment and the breaks in the hedgerow, this is located to the south of the site. It's still considered to be low visual impact. However, biodiversity net gain, and to reduce the visual impact further, additional tree planting has been recommended in this location. And again, that could be secured with the recommended landscaping condition. This is another photo across the site. The fence in the foreground is the perimeter fence, and the internal fences, as seen, will be removed. And this is similar again. The fence close to the screen will be kept, and then the internal fence is also removed. This shows the western boundary of the site. So when the plan shows an access track, the ones inside the fence are all grass and will remain as grass. The hedging to the left is to remain. Again, with the small gaps that are used for access for tractors, quads, etc. There'll be secondary hedgerow in order to prevent visual impact onto the public right of way, which is located to the west behind the hedge. This is what I mean by the access gaps. And this is the access track to the far west. And then to the right of this plan, you can see some trees. And then the other side of that is the public right of way. So the public right of way is quite well screened with hedgerow and mature trees. This is the proposed location for the transformers. So on this, this will be replaced with transformer locations along with wildflower planting and other further tree planting. To the other side of this hedge, so behind the trees, is the public right of way, and there's a farm access track to the south, which you can see to the left of the photo. And thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Paul Goddard, highways issues.
Good evening, Chairman. My understanding is that this item was brought to committee because of traffic concerns, mainly during construction, I understand. We've obtained additional information from the applicants. And it is projected that there will be 20 large vehicles in and out during the course of construction, in addition to minibuses and cars that you would see every day for the employees, the workers, during the course of construction. There are two haul routes being considered that Cheyenne did put on screen. The primary one is via Priory Road, Inkpen Road and Cold Harbour to the south. And if there's anything wrong with that route, then there is an additional route to the north via Park Street and Hungerford Road to the north. We have secured the haul routes by condition. I understand it's condition 4 within your report. And we have asked for a swept path analysis of large vehicles using those routes to get to the site. That is yet to be submitted, but it is secured by condition, with condition 5 covering that particular issue. Upon completion, the very nature of these facilities, the level of traffic is very low, with the occasional maintenance vehicle visiting the site now and then. So once construction is completed, the use should not produce any traffic concerns. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we move over to speakers. It's over to you, Helen Simpson from Hungerford Town Council. And again, 5 minutes, Helen, 4 minutes we were notified. So you've got a minute to draw your speech to a conclusion.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Good evening, Chairman and members. Not long ago, Hungerford Park's application to keep a caravan beside Barnsea was refused because of the visual harm it would cause to this attractive agricultural site. So I must ask, what's changed? How is the solar farm with all of its infrastructure now being considered on land close to this refused application? The 2024 National Planning Framework Policy is clear. Planning decisions must protect and enhance valued landscapes, recognise the character and the beauty of the countryside, and minimise environmental harm while improving biodiversity. It also says that great weight must be given to conserving and enhancing the scenic beauty in national landscapes, like the North Wessex Downs AONB. These areas have the highest level of protection under planning law. In these protected areas, major developments should only go ahead in exceptional circumstances and only if they're clearly in the public interest. This development is not exceptional and not in the public interest. Who decides if this is a major development or not? We understand it is in the planning officer, with the planning officer. West Berkshire Council may not consider a major development in the OMB, but the people of Hungerford certainly do. The North Wessex Downs OMB office is based just down the road, but it's no longer a statutory consultee. Sadly, they have not been asked to comment on this application. HTC believe not asking the North Wessex Downs AONB experts to comment is a serious oversight by the planning officer. I'm sure if given the opportunity, they would have challenged the officer's recommendation. That's a serious oversight by the planning officer. Without input from the North Wessex Downs, WAP members are not seeing the full picture. There are other solar farms north of Swindon, for instance, but none are in the Cotswolds or in the North Wessex Downs AONB. One exception is the solar farm on the old RAF Wroughton Airfield site inside the OMB, but that was a brownfield site, and the decision was taken by the Secretary of State, who ruled it was in the national interest. Hungerford Park's land sits in the heart of the North Wessex Downs AOMB. It's not on a brownfield site. This project is not for public benefit. It's a private commercial scheme to benefit the landowner. And there's also a better alternative. According to recent campaign to protect rural England, report, 60% of solar should come from rooftops. Hungerford Park has 5 barns with approximately 3,200 square metres of roof space. That's enough to meet most, if not all, of the estate's energy needs, and without harming the countryside. The land itself is grade 3B. It can grow crops and be improved. If it is no longer needed for horse pasture, it should be used to produce food, not energy infrastructure. Visually, it matters. From the estate, you can see Coombe Gibbet, a nationally recognised viewpoint. With no leaves on the trees for nearly half the year, the solar farm will be visible and is a real loss. The planning officer has recommended approval, but Hungerford Town Council disagrees, and so do many other local people. This land holds the highest level of protection. It is not brownfield. The purpose use is not in the national interest. There is a clear lower impact alternative.
You're on 4 minutes now.
Solar panels on existing roofs. This application causes clear visual harm and it undermines national planning policy and the core purpose of the North Wessex Downs AONB. Just like the caravan application, this one should be refused to protect this special landscape. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, questions to Helen? Members, right, Councillor Vickers.
Are you sure that the North Wessex Downs team weren't asked to respond and just didn't choose to?
That's not my understanding. We were told they weren't invited to comment.
Right, I mean, they very rarely are actually, but ward members do. And I thought one of our ward members, it wasn't me, I think, actually asked them. But yeah, there's no response, I agree.
Further questions at all? No? Oh, yeah, Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, just a quick one. I haven't got the information in front of me. When was the previous caravan refused? You know,
It was some time ago. I believe 2013 rings a bell.
2013, okay, before my time then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I think exhausted all the questions.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Right, now we move over to the agent, Graham Welchman Taylor, who I gather is on Zoom. Is that correct? Hello, are you there, Graham? Okay, can you hear me?
Hello, Chair, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. You've got 5 minutes and the clock will start, stopwatch will start as soon as you're ready to commence your presentation.
Thank you very much. First of all, Chair, I would like to thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm speaking on behalf of Hungerford Park Estate regarding the Hungerford Park solar array. Now, the development has been designed and by nature is a clean energy project, and we feel that there is an element of local benefits within that project. The installation...
Can you just stop, please? I think it's not that crystal clear, is it?
It's not so much that. I did normally use people present on camera, and he was on camera a moment ago. It'd be nice to
oh, right, okay. Is there any specific reason why we keep getting your name up and not a visual?
Let me just check. I'm clicking the video button, just a second. Can you see me?
That's better.
Okay, apologies. Apologies, Chair. As I was saying, so the proposal for the Hungerford Park solar array clean energy project based on the principle of generating electricity from a renewable source to be used, small proportion to be used on site within the estate, and the remaining energy to be exported to the grid and to be consumed locally within the local area. The development is expected to reduce carbon emissions by 442 tonnes of CO2 per year, equating to around about 13,000 tonnes over the lifetime of the installation. In practical terms, the export from this system is expected to generate enough energy for in excess of 300 UK typical domestic properties. That would make it a relatively large contributor to local energy security within the area. In addition to the solar panel installation, the proposal includes battery storage. This is to provide additional uptake of energy within the estate and is not part of a grid management scheme. Visual impact has been thoroughly assessed through the landscape and visual impact assessment. We've also undertaken early stage assessments prior to initial design to identify the best location for this development within the estate. As previously stated, the visual impact assessment has identified a number of small locations where visual impact might be an issue, and those areas have been identified for tree planting, hedgerow reinforcement, etc., which will mitigate the visual impact issue from those viewpoints. The design of the installation has been specifically focused on low visual impact black frame panels that are matte, painted with matte black around the outside to minimize any reflections from the actual framing system itself, and anti-reflective coatings on the panels themselves, so as not to draw the eye to the development. Moving on to traffic and construction, as that was raised earlier. There are no plans to amend any of the existing routes. There's no new construction, new roads to be constructed, and maintenance access will be provided through the existing grass tracks that run across the site at present. Construction traffic will be managed by the on-site construction team. Delivery hours kept within reasonable times, and careful scheduling of the construction traffic will be managed throughout the construction process.
You're just coming up to 4 minutes, so
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Biodiversity gains over the site. One of the strengths of this development is the biodiversity net gains well in excess of the 10% gain required for planning. There's been a big focus on this project, the introduction of the wildflower meadows both around the panels and around the switchgear that are external to the main development. Plus the hedgerow reinforcement and the screening, tree planting, birds and bat boxes, all equating to a significant biodiversity net gain across the site. This is going to attract and become a haven for pollinators, birds and bats across the site. Just to conclude, we have a development that is providing...
We're just coming up to the 5 minutes, so if you can conclude, please.
I absolutely am. Apologies, Chair. Development that's exporting enough energy to the local network for well over 300 homes, 13,000 tonnes of CO2 reduction associated with the generated energy, avoids any new road construction as part of the development, and a significant biodiversity increase across the development. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you very much for your presentation. If you can just stay on the screen, Councillor Amarthraj has a question to start with.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Miltering-Taylor. Apologies if I'm not able to understand clearly. There's a bit of a echo going on. So if I misunderstood incorrectly, please apologize. But I just wanted to understand, you mentioned this solar array is not part of the grid management. That was the words you used, but just trying to expand on that. If that statement on part of the grid management, are you suggesting that the energy from the solar array, solar park, would be part of, will be meeting the energy needs of the park, and then it won't be exported to the grid? I'm not clear on that one, but if it is part of to meet the energy needs of this Hungerford Park, are there any other considerations or sources of energy considered other than this scheme? And my second question would be to you is that you mentioned that the delivery of lorries and the HEVs would be maintained at reasonable times. Can you expand on what, according to you, is reasonable times? Because it could be subjective. And is it part of the construction management plan you're going to explicitly call out that it will be during the time of like non-sociable hours or not during the time? So can you expand on this, clarify those two questions, please? Thank you.
Of course, no problem at all. So the first question to do with the production of energy and the utilization of that energy. The system has been designed with a primary focus of providing energy for the estate during the darker months, and so therefore there's a significant amount of export in the summer months. My comments that I made regarding it was actually the battery system that I was talking about specifically, regarding network services. It is a type of system you can install, a battery system you can install to support the local grid, and you get paid for those services. I wanted to be clear that that was not part of this scheme. The batteries the single purpose of this battery installation is to maximize the amount of energy that the estate can utilize from the solar installation during the working day, and to support the businesses there, and various domestic properties across the estate. So it's the batteries are not part of a grand grid support design. That was my point on that one. Is that clear enough? Is that you happy with that answer?
Yeah, happy with that one. But also I've asked about any alternate sources.
And yeah, so the delivery times. And so as part of the management, the construction management plan, we will be outlining the let's say reasonable delivery times. So for large, the biggest deliveries will be the panels themselves, the mounting system, making sure that those are arriving within reasonable times. I've had discussions with the client and various potential contractors about what those times would be. We will submit a fully detailed management plan and outline those times. I just wanted to make sure that you knew we were considering the delivery times would be an issue here, and that we want to make sure that we are transparent in the management plan when that's submitted.
Okay, right, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your words, sir. Two questions, very simple ones. First of all, can you give us an idea across a typical year, if this goes ahead, the split between the energy that's used on the estate as opposed to the energy that's exported into the local grid?
Yeah, it's very simple. It's a rough two-thirds split. So a third being used by the estate and two-thirds being exported to the grid. The reasoning behind that, as I said previously, was that the focus of the design.
That's fine. It was just
okay.
Numbers. Thank you. And secondly, again, if this goes ahead, I note that one of the conditions is that obviously it'll in 40 years' time we'll all be able to watch it being removed, and the fields restored to the previous state. Give us an idea how long that would take to return it to the way it looks today.
I would anticipate removal or decommissioning of solar installations can be relatively quick. It will be the pastures, obviously the wildflowers, etc. that have been planted. They should be very mature by that point.
Sorry, I know all that.
Around about three. Oh, sorry, I didn't quite catch that. 3 to 4 months, I would have thought to in terms of work on site, but it would require revisits in order to make sure that any planting has taken, etc. Over the course of the following years.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, right, Councillor Foot.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, when we heard from the Hungerford Town Council, they mentioned that could the estate not access the sufficient energy using roofs and such like to provide their energy source. Now, you've said that the split is going to be 1/3 to the estate and 2/3 to the grid. But have you done any sort of like sequential tests to sort of see if the estate could actually manage just by using solar panels on the roofs of their buildings? Thanks.
Yes, there was an assessment carried out very early doors when first, probably 2 or 3 years ago, we were looking at the potential on the site, and it was deemed that the roof-mounted installation would be a very small percentage. I might have that in front of me, but sorry, on my filing system, but I could. If anybody needs that information, I could provide that if it's required.
Okay, further questions at all? No? Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thanks for answering the questions, and we will continue on with the discussions. Now, I move over to the ward member.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got very little to say on this and nothing prepared. Remembering that our ward covers a very large area, this is a very small part of it. Most of it is the North Wessex Downs. So often when I speak as ward member, and I naturally kind of speak on behalf of the interest of the North Wessex Downs, including its residents and the communities in it, but also bearing in mind that just like the rest of the district, this ward is part of a district that has declared a climate and ecological emergency, and providing renewable energy is a significant part of meeting that challenge of reducing our carbon footprint. I carefully looked, I attended the site visit. I know and share the concerns of the town council about, particularly she sort of referred to, Councillor Simpson referred to the approach that and the problems that we've had over a number of years with this particular applicant. But we can't make a decision on the basis of how one particular applicant has behaved towards this council's planning department. And frankly, much as I would like to support the town council, I think on the broader ward perspective, there have been solar arrays smaller than this approved within the North Wessex Downs, and there are others that are not in the North Wessex Downs, and generally I think there has to be great weight given to them. And of course there's much more area of land not covered in roofs than there is in roofs in that area. I only wish we could see some of the benefits of solar energy, renewable energy generally, going directly to the local residents in the form of lower electricity bills, but we're not there yet, although I believe the government has now started the process of a bill that will move us in that direction. So that's all I've got to say, but I can answer any questions about the ward perspective.
Thank you, Councillor Vickers. Questions for Councillor Vickers, members? Yes, Councillor Abbott.
With your permission, Chairman, because it wasn't mentioned about the grade of land, but I'd be very interested in the ward member's perspective, or would his opinion change if the quality of the land had been 3A, not 3B? I'll allow you to...
I'm happy with you answering that question, asking that question.
I don't think I'm qualified to answer, but it is a material factor, I believe, the quality of the agricultural land, but I don't think 3B is I think there is a significant difference between 3A and 3B. I don't know whether any of our officers can be better. I'm sure they are better qualified to answer that. I can speak on behalf of the North Wessex Downs, and they do try and look holistically at these things, both in the interest. There is a whole chapter in the management plan that's coming to this council to adopt later in the year about renewable energy.
Would
climate
your
change.
opinion have changed if there'd been land already classified as 3A rather than 3B?
I don't think this is the right slot for my opinion to be given, actually. I'm here to represent the ward's,
I think in a minute, yeah.
what I understand to be the ward's interests.
Okay, thank you very
Thank you.
much. And this is a time when I think you say cheerio, is that correct? Not this moment of time. Okay, all right, okay. I thought that's
I
what
can
you
vote on this
I
one,
thought
I
you were
hope.
about to say that, Councillor Vickers, but okay, all right, okay. Right, members, it's now your opportunity to ask questions of the officers. So now, Councillor Abs, you've got the opportunity again to ask the same question.
Pretty much the same question, but with a slight clarification. Of course, the difference is moderate quality versus good quality. That's 3A, 3B, the two subcategories. What efforts, if any, have been made to assess the land? Because it's currently down as 3B, but has any effort been made at all to actually look at the land, because it's been used as paddock for quite a while, and there is evidence to say that land used as paddocks does tend to lead to improvement in the quality of the land. So I'm just, what is the officer position on this?
Thank you, councillor. I mean, currently the site is classed as equestrian use, so we wouldn't consider it as agricultural. So we wouldn't take that into consideration because it's not agricultural land at present. If it would be very different if it was an arable field, but it's currently not. We have to assess it currently, which is equestrian paddock, which is completely different to a normal agricultural field. So if they didn't proceed with this application, they can go back to an they can go back to an equestrian field. But again, we can't make them go back to agriculture or plant crops or anything like that. It's not taking land out of agricultural production because that's not what it's used for currently. It's got use as equestrian.
Understood. If I may, I'm a bit confused because on the site visit, the issue of what grade land came up, and it has been mentioned already that it's 3B. Well, 3B seems to say moderate quality agricultural land.
Because previously, before it became equestrian use, because the map's not done by ourselves, it's a DEFRA mapping system, so it doesn't specifically pick each site. It's in layers on a PDF, so it would say that Hungerford Town is 3B, or whatever layer it says there. It doesn't go down to the nitty gritty right onto that particular site. It's a general census, if that makes sense. They don't come round and review every site. It doesn't have individual paddocks. It's a mapping layer, so they take it as a whole, the quality of the land. If that's made any sense.
I understand.
So the broader area is shown as 3B, but this site is not in agricultural use. So there is no site assessment for it.
Okay, thank you.
Then we can't, obviously, if it's not in agricultural use, we can't take that into account as a baseline position.
Councillor Williston was next. Councillor.
Could I just check? I don't think I've misunderstood the papers, but from what I can see, there were no public objections at all. Could you just confirm that, please?
Yes, there was no objection letters received. Yes, I've just double checked, and yeah, we have received no objection letters at all.
Okay, right, Councillor Dick.
Thank you, Chairman. And someone needs to say it. Thank you for this well-written and very clear report. The issue, obviously, is around impact, isn't it? And you rehearsed that towards the end of 6.2 and in various other places. So is it major, is it minor? And you've come to the balanced view that it's not significant. Could you just say a few sentences about your thinking there, please?
So I will clarify on the major aspect of it. So the reason this is major development is because of the land size, so anything over 0.5 hectares is classed as major in planning terms, but the development itself is not necessarily considered major development. And then with the landscape impact, we had a LVIA submitted, and on site, so if you're stood in the middle of the site, it would be considered moderate visual impact, but that's because you're stood in the middle of the site. However, the wider views were taken as low visual impact, and then this would be reduced further through further mitigation planting, such as hedgerows and trees, given the proximity of public rights of way and the landscape topography itself.
Thank you, Chairman. Helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Al-Rajaj, again, you.
Thank you, Chairman. The question to Mr. Goddard, please. On the 2013 application, the report refers to in section 2.0, there was access dangerous junction previously onto the Inkbank Road, and it was rejected. So given that situation, what has changed with this application that the commercial, because the refusal was in 2013 was a commercial use of this road. Now, given this application tends to be more of a commercial in nature and HEVs coming in now and out of the site, what has changed now to deem that this one is a safe route? Even there are two routes, how does it make safe now?
Chairman, with this planning application, any use of the roads to and from the site by large vehicles is only a temporary nature during construction, while the PACU would have been over a much longer period, would have been permanent. So the planning application before you, once completed, would have virtually no traffic impact, except for the occasional maintenance vehicle to attend to the solar panels. But because any large vehicles will only for a limited number and for a limited period of time for construction, we feel that on balance, this proposal is acceptable on that basis because it's only for a temporary period.
Do you want to come back on that?
Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to come back on that, and Mr. Goddard, I understand this is going to be a temporary nature of vehicles coming in, but the core issue of that previous rejection, and still it may be valid from your suggestion that it may be dangerous even on a temporary basis. My question to is, what has now changed? And even if nothing has changed, what are the mitigation measures put in a plan to be put in place to make it safe, even for that temporary duration? We don't know the duration of the construction. It could be a 6 months to 1 year period, let's say. So during that time, what are the mitigation measures to make it safe or to make it relatively safe? I don't know what's the subjective angle is, but I'm focusing on the safety aspects, not on the temporary or movement or inconvenience aspect.
Agreed, but there are no mitigation measures being put forward. I do not consider that the number of vehicle movements projected, we think during the course of construction, there would be 20 HGVs in and 20 HGVs out. I do not consider those numbers to be sufficient for us to consider any mitigation. I appreciate it's not ideal, but I reiterate once again that it is only for a limited period of time, and therefore, on balance, we will accept that for the limited period of time that this proposal will be constructed for.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. I'm not trying to put you in a spot, but Chairman, through you, I'm just trying to go into the before the debate stage. Understanding of this nature is officers believe that this is okay on a planning consideration, but it is still relatively unsafe during that limited period of large HGVs using that road. So that's why my understanding is, although it will be for a short duration.
Thank you very much for those comments, but obviously the highways officer did answer the point in your initial question anyway. Right, Councillor Foot.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Could I ask the planning officer, with the construction management plan, forgive me if I've missed it, but could we clarify what's going to happen to the site offices and the cabin arrangement that is shown in the document pack, is that, for example, going to be taken away and the site completely cleared and reverted back to sort of like natural landscaping? Thanks.
Thank you very much, councillor. I haven't got a specific construction management plan on the as part of the conditions. However, we can add that on if members require detailing, because we can then look at detailing times of deliveries as well, because I know members had previous concerns on that. So we could look at having that submitted, which the agent obviously from his section did say that they're willing to draft that. So we can, if members feel like they need to, we can look at adding a construction management statement on there, and that can include the temporary compound. I believe some of the hard standings already there, because I believe there's containers, etc., in the area. But it should go back to how it was. But again, we can have this added into the construction management statement if members so wish. We can have that added in.
Okay, Councillor Right, Councillor Vickers.
Yeah, my question is really following up what Councillor Simpson said about the North Wessex Sound team not responding. Could officers perhaps explain what process they go through? When, if at all, do they reach out to the team, the North Wessex Downs, knowing how busy they are, and say, we think it would be helpful if you commented on a particular application? Is there any system? I know they're not statutory consultee.
Chairman, according to our records, they were consulted on this application on the 24th of February, but we haven't received a response. I can talk to Councillor Vickers separately about the arrangements. Off the top of my head, I believe we consult them on more majors, but we can always have discussions with them to vary that. But yeah.
That was my understanding too, but it's good to have it confirmed by you, Mr. Dre.
Okay, right, Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm just a question for Mr. Dre. There was an appeal decision to do with building of a solar farm in an area of outstanding natural beauty, decision date 2nd of August 2023, which basically agreed that building a solar farm in basically the same type of scenario that we're talking here, the kind of the refusal by the local council there was upheld by the inspector. Now, admittedly, that's 2 years. No, it's not 2 years ago, but nearly 2 years ago. Did the MPPF? Were you aware of these appeal decisions supporting refusal of applications?
Is there something in the pack?
It's not in the pack, no, but it's an appeal decision. I thought we're always told to look at what the inspectors and previous decisions.
I can't comment on anything specific in the that's not in the pack.
But is something specifically changed in the latest NPPF such that the same reasons, the openness and the visual impact, were the reasons for refusal on that one, which was upheld? What changed so that they wouldn't be upheld now?
But this is for a different site.
Well, of course, a different site, yes.
So obviously,
but it's both in AO and B, both basically solar farms in paddocks. So.
There is no preclusion for solar farms in the AONB, so each site will be considered on its merits, and obviously we've assessed this one and the landscape impacts, etc., and deemed it's acceptable. With reference to the major development, if that's the concern here, that's unhelpfully the major definition, which in planning terms, which dictates the publicity and consultation arrangements, is one thing based on the site area. And unhelpfully, the MPPF uses the same term for a policy about not allowing major development in the AONB unless in exceptional circumstances. On the MPPF policy, that's a matter of judgment, and obviously we are guided by various appeal decisions on working out where the boundaries, what's major and what's not. But ultimately, it's a matter of judgment, and I think in the context of this site, we've concluded it isn't.
I can also comment on that. So historically with the MPPF, they've resisted solar arrays in the AONB, but they've encouraged councils to put these in areas outside national landscape. However, this has changed in the last 3 versions of the MPPF, because I think we had 2 in 1 year. So in more recent years, that referral to the national landscape has been removed, and the concern in national policy has been more of impact on listed buildings, conservation areas, etc. And the national policy is to encourage solar array. And also when you look at our own local plans, which has a whole climate change policy stating net zero, policy does change quite frequently. And obviously without seeing the application that you're referring to yourself, it's quite difficult to compare, because we have to judge each site on its merits. But national policy has changed, and it is much more encouraging of solar arrays, even in national landscapes, which are more sensitive to change.
And that's the clarity I was looking for, that something changed such that potentially appeals that were updated.
Yes, yeah, I only know this because I helped on when I first started, I helped on a appeal for a solar array for the council.
Okay, Councillor Abbs, right, Councillor Gaines now.
Thank you, Chair. Mr Goddard, the plan application in 13 was actually some problems with the Cold Harbour Road, wasn't it? That was, so actually, because of the number of movements, it shouldn't really be a problem in the future. My question is about the SWEP analysis. I'm really worried about the second route, the one that's going up Park Street. If we're talking about very large lorries going up the high street and then trying to turn left into Park Street, it's going to cause chaos. Is there any other way we can actually have that SWEP analysis look at a different route? I appreciate that it's a route, a secondary route, but nevertheless, that may be used.
Chairman, we did look at this. What we didn't want, for instance, was large vehicles going through Kimberley. So what we're looking for is the vehicles to come direct from the A338. And so we felt that there were 2 choices between us, either Priory Road or Park Street. Ideally, I would like to have the SWEP path analysis before us, but it hasn't been submitted yet. So we have secured it by condition. But I do share your concerns, and the onus will be on the applicant to make sure that the routes work and that the vehicles that they were intending to use can be accommodated by the route. If they can't, then in my view, they'll have to use smaller vehicles that can use the route. So in fairness, there is further work to be done, but the conditions are secured there that they have to submit the information that I hope will assuage your concerns.
Thank you. Can I ask a second question?
Carry on, yeah.
Ms Kirby, coming to the container and the actual office that's going to be used, we know that there have been times in the past where this some of the planning things that have gone on in Hungerford Park have not necessarily been removed when they should have been. Is there any way we can put a condition in place that details the minute that this is actually completed, that building will that container or whatever they're going to use will be removed? Because that area that it's going to be in seems to get busier and busier with more and more furniture in that site every year. Thank you.
Chairman, I might answer that if we can. There are conditions we can put on solar farms relating to decommissioning, and we've used in the past where it's either after the 40-year period has expired, within the following 6 months to remove it, or if it's not generating electricity for a whole year consecutively, then it could kick in earlier. So that is a condition that can.
I think they're on about the temporary construction compound.
I was actually talking about the temporary structure for the construction. It's going to be in the same area as the warehouses and the railway container.
We can add that into the construction management statement, saying we can request that details about how that is to be removed and the timescales for that, because we might just have to say, rather than a specific date, we might have to say
Within
2
a
weeks
period of
after
time.
completion, etc. And then if that can be in the construction management statement. And then obviously if there's any issues with that, then our enforcement team can look at with that afterwards.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, members, have you exhausted questions of officers? If so, who is going to open the debate? Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, happy to. I think, you know, we have a change in PPF that changes the weight, and whether I personally agree or disagree with, you know, what's happened, it doesn't really matter. That's the NPPF that we have, and I think the officers have weighted things correctly in this case. They are evidence such as its reversible use, which carries weight in the judgment. Now, we might be talking 35, 40 years from now, but it's still reversible. The removal of food security as a concern within the NPPF further lends weight to what the officers have told us. So as much as I would like to be in support of what was said by the Hungerford Town Council, I just can't see any way to pin a decision against officer recommendation without us then just basically running into further issues down the road. So obviously we'll listen to debate in case anybody says anything different, but I'm minded at the moment to go along with officers' advice on this.
Okay, right. Oh, well, I'm sure there's going to be other comments around the table before we get to a proposal. Right, Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Chairman. We've heard quite a lot about this being in the North Wessex Downs, and I thought, Chairman, it might be helpful if I understand why we get so few comments on planning applications from them. Is that all right? Because I wouldn't want us to give weight either way just because they haven't responded. Similarly, you know, just because a parish council doesn't turn up and speak for its residents, that doesn't mean to say they don't have a view, but it can be seen naturally as, well, they don't care, which isn't always the case, and certainly isn't the case with Hungerford Town Council in this case. I mean, we only have one planner at the North Wessex Downs team, and they cover 7 local planning authorities, and they get 600 planning applications across those areas every week. What I would always recommend to members, if you think that the landscape and its approach.
Chairman, from the chair, I was just about to say, I think we need to really address points which are relevant to this application, Councillor Vickers, and I think you are actually straying a little bit off on information which might be helpful to other people, but not at this particular time.
All right, Chairman,
so
I raised it because
point.
Councillor Simpson raised that as an issue, and I just wanted to explain why that's very unlikely, but ward members should consider it and phone the office there if they think that there needs to be a response. That's all, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, and I'm sorry that I put you back in the correct, appropriate direction, but I did feel that you actually straying a little bit off script. Right, further comments on the debate. Right, Councillor Dick.
Thank you, Chairman. And obviously we get no responses from a large number of consultees, some of them statutory, and we simply note that and move on. Very simply, I would echo, it does worry me that I do, but I'm echoing exactly what Councillor Abbs said. I agree with his sentiments, I agree with his reluctance, but I agree with his conclusion, if that helps.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to push you for a proposal at this stage, but
you can have a proposal if you wish.
If you feel it's appropriate at this particular time, Councillor Dick.
Well, I propose that we accept the recommendation as written in the report by the officer, with the clarification of the couple of extra tighter regulations that we have mentioned during the debate.
Okay.
Can I just clarify, is that just the CMS condition, the construction management statement condition?
Yes, it was that, which includes obviously the removal of temporary offices.
Yeah, and the delivery times.
And then the reverse at the other end.
Okay, that's fine.
And sorry, the road issue, the SWIP analysis. Those are they, I believe.
Okay, that's the proposal. Now, obviously, there's been conditions on the proposal, Councillor Dick, and I'm looking for a seconder, actually. Or will you actually, you wish to make further comments?
Yes.
Well, okay, make further comments, but we've had a proposal and I was looking for a seconder for that proposal, that was all. But right, I'm going to come to you, Councillor Wollaston, in a minute. Councillor, go on, Councillor Armstrong, if you've actually
Thank
got
you,
some
Chairman.
points to raise,
Thank you, Chairman.
which are relevant to the proposal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I will make only points relevant to this application. What I want to make an observation is, just for the record, is we shouldn't be, as a council, looking for just the objective of net zero gain, looking to convert agricultural land into solar arrays or whatever. So, although there is clear indication that it will be providing that advantage, it is concerning that we are looking at agricultural land, although it's not used, but all the agricultural lands are available potentially if this goes ahead. My observation on that access routes is still valid because it's still dangerous according to the officers, and there is no explanation in this report that there is no whatever the mitigation plans or not no mitigation plans will make it that unsafe route, both the routes, still for HEV vehicles in the construction management plan. So I'm still looking for certain conditions if that can be put in place to make it somewhat safe or measure or monitor the safety aspects. Because what happens if there is an accident or if there is an issue concerning safety in that construction period? Who will bear the cost, or who will, more importantly, have that concern addressed? So my point is that like certain conditions needs to be put in place to monitor that the movement of the high HEV vehicles. So that's my observation.
Okay, I'm just going to ask Mr. Dray to address that particular point.
Chairman, the construction management plan condition can be include details of safety requirements, and we can obviously consult with highways on that when it comes in, and the health and safety executive are responsible for construction health and safety as well. So there will be separate legislation as well.
Right, Councillor Wollaston before Councillor Gaines, sorry.
I share the concerns, but I think we do have to put this into perspective. It is only 20 HGVs over the course of the entire construction period. So to a degree, my concerns are allayed. I don't think we logically see how we can refuse this application, frankly. It meets all the council priorities, and I'm happy to second, subject to the amendments already suggested.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wollaston. Is that further points, or were you actually going to second it, Councillor Gaines? Okay, fair enough.
So I appreciate.
I never took you before because you didn't put your hand up before. But
I appreciate. I was waiting to see what everybody else said, Chairman. So sorry, as the ward councillor, I think I should say a few words. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Hungerford Town Council presentation, because that was excellent. I mean, I hope I don't sound condescending, but it was an excellent presentation. And I absolutely, my heart goes with the information that they came forward with. My head, of course, says, well, actually, because of the MPPF, because of all the local plan, the new local plan processes and everything, and all the policies in that, that we have to go with actually officers' recommendations.
Thank you very much for your sincere views on the subject. Is there any other points that we need to actually include in the proposal? Rob, at all? Anything else that?
So I've recorded the proposal as approval in accordance with officer recommendation with additional construction methods statement, which will cover all of the bases mentioned, and including safety measures, if that's agreeable with the proposer and seconder.
All those in favour then, members? Unanimous. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Helen. Attend.
Chairman, can I, a point of information before I leave this seat, explaining there's going to be a change in the speakers. Mr. Sam Bell, down as a supporter, will not be speaking because other members of the applicant's team thought he was speaking as the parish council, but the parish council has explicitly said he can't speak on their behalf, so he will not be speaking.
Well, thank you very much for that information, Councillor Vickers, because I was just about to ask for a suspension of standing orders, which now is not relevant. So
I don't think it's right,
yeah.
seeing as he's explicitly had the parish council chairman say he doesn't want him to speak.
Okay. Thank you very much for that information, Councillor Vickers. Okay, just wait for. I'll just wait till you return, Councillor Gaines. Where's is he gone now, Councillor Abs?
It's not here, but it needs to be here for the start of the item, or we can't take part.
But where is it's Councillor Abs? Just
not responsible for that.
Oh, okay. I'm just giving you the benefit of the doubt, members, because obviously, technically, if you've left the chamber, we're about to commence. Okay. Okay, no, but Councillor Abs did actually leave the chamber. That's. We weren't in debate, but nevertheless, we were a bit concerned where you might have actually disappeared to. Okay, we're all sitting comfortably, so I'm going to continue on. Okay, right, now we move on to item 4, brackets 2, application 25/00827/FUL MAJ, Welford Park, Welford. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Lauren, who's going to present the application. So Lauren, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I see that my slides aren't on the screen. Am I not showing it correctly? There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so this item is, the proposal is for the use of the land for a wedding ceremonies and reception venue for 6 months a year between April and September, including the temporary erection of teepees, a catering tent, a ceremony tent, a mobile toilet block, and associated car parking for a temporary period of 5 years. The applicant is Forest Edge Teepees and Welford Park. The reason for committee is a councillor call in by Councillor Tony Vickers. The recommendation is for refusal. The M4 motorway is located approximately 450 meters to the south. You can see my cursor there. The application site measures 5 hectares in extent and is located within 2 ancient woodlands under a tree preservation order. Access is to be taken via 2 access points along Welford Road and over here. The location of the teepees would be within a clearing within the ancient woodland, excuse me, measuring approximately 2 hectares in extent. There is a large parking area located to the west of the site on arable land, which would measure approximately 0.3 hectares. A public right-of-way runs along the internal access track between 2 access points along Welford Road, runs along here as well, through there. And the site forms part of the North Wessex Downs National Landscape. This is the site plan. As you can see, there's an entrance point over here and an exit point over here. So there would be a 2-way system. This is the parking area over here. And then the wedding area is to the north within the trees. We'll get onto the nature of the clearing in a moment. Guests would exit through the ancient woodland over here and drive this way. Sorry, all the green spaces here are ancient woodland. You can see this more clearly here. So this part here is ancient woodland with the site over here, which is where the wedding venue would take place. And these areas are under TPOs as well. As you can see, this is also a local wildlife site. It corresponds with the location of the ancient woodland. And most of the activity will take place over here with the same sort of activity with the vehicles down the side. There we go. The site is currently being used by forest edge teepees for wedding ceremonies and receptions and are permitted development rights. This restricts the use of the land for wedding ceremonies to 28 days in total per calendar year. According to the agent, 8 weddings can be accommodated per year under PD rights. Under permitted development, according to the agent, with a total of 8 weddings that would be held in 2025, the wedding venue would hold 120 guests. That is a maximum. And this would amount to 960 guests per year. Sorry, I think that's an error. That's per month, sorry. In a similar previous application, 2.5 guests per vehicle was accepted as standard. For the purposes of measuring the amount of the proposed activity, it is assumed that 8 vendors would be used. This amounts to 896 vehicle movements per year. While 8 weddings per year over 28 days can be held, this application would result in an unlimited number of weddings over a 6-month period. So this is one of the scenarios that I've drafted based on the proposed 1 to 2 weddings per week. Over the course of 5 years, this will amount to 180 weddings as opposed to 40 under permitted development rights. In terms of guest numbers, this would amount to 4,320 guests over 6 months. Over a 5-year period, this would amount to 21,500 guests. In terms of vehicle movements, this would amount to 4,032 vehicle movements over a period of 6 months. Over 5 years, we're looking at 180 weddings. This would amount to 20,160 vehicle movements. There would, however, be some variation as not all the weddings will accommodate 120 people. But what is in front of you is an application for a wedding venue that can accommodate 120 people at each wedding. As we are in an ancient woodland, we need to consider the maximum impact and that can result. Members can see page 45 of the document pack for these numbers. This is the existing site plan where the teepees would be located. This is the proposed layout. I think it's quite self-explanatory. This is the catering tent. It wasn't visible on the site visit because it had been moved to a different location, but this is what it would look like. This is the toilet block. You could see that on the site visit. And yeah, it's what is on the site visit is quite similar. This is the ceremony tent. This is the proposed ceremony tent, as you can see from the photograph, adjacent to the plan. This ceremony tent is substantially different to the timber structure that has been erected on the site for the existing use. The proposed ceremony tent seen here measures 12 meters long, 6 meters wide, and 3.6 meters high, with white PVC sides, and clear PVC windows. This is the proposed site entrance. This is the exit. You may remember driving in from this point when you visited the site. This is the parking area. This would accommodate 40 vehicles. And this is an image of the site without the teepees that was taken in February 2025 on a site visit. And this is from the other direction also in 2025. This is a picture of the main teepee that you would have seen on site. As you can see, the photograph shows 4 interlinking teepees, sorry. I think there's 3 interlinking teepees are proposed. And yes, the catering tent would be behind these teepees, but yeah, it wasn't visible on site. This is another picture. This is the breakout tent where people can sit to get away from the dancing and all the merriment in the larger tent. And then that's the toilet block behind it. This is a picture inside the teepees. These areas here, this is a side portion that you can lift. It's proposed to lift this, and there's a few others within the tent. And that would just sort of expose the tent area when it's not being used. The floor also would be lifted as well. Here's another tent opening, and then this is the bar area, as you can see over there. This is some signage that you would have seen trying to make your way towards the car park. And this is the ceremony area. This is what's existing. We're not considering that at the moment because it's not on the proposed plan. What is before you is this tent here. So we would need to, we wouldn't be looking to condition this plan necessarily showing this structure. It would be the proposed TP here, tent here. So in terms of the benefits, this application would have a strong local economic benefit and support the local rural economy, as most businesses are based in nearby Newbury, Thatcham, Eastbury, and Lambourne. Supporters of the proposal include a florist, a local butcher's, a makeup artist, a nearby public house, a supplier of dance floor music and lighting equipment, as well as caterers. The wedding and reception venue would create both part-time and full-time jobs, and revenue would go towards the owners of Welford Park and their farming business and woodland management. The Economic Development Officer supports this application, and there would be a strong local economic impact, and the weighting of this impact in the planning balance will be discussed shortly. There is also low amenity impact on account of the rural location. There are no residential dwellings close by that could be disturbed by noise and traffic. Apart from the car park to the west of the ancient woodland, the wedding activities would not be visible. It is also unlikely that the visual impact of the various structures would be unsightly, as couples would pay attention to their decor and would capitalize on the rural feel of the site within the ancient woodland. While there are unquestionable benefits, there are also serious concerns, and we are in an ecological emergency. 3 officers have objected to the proposal. These officers include your senior tree officer, your senior ecology officer, and your highways team leader. And now I'll hand over to the senior tree officer, Mr. Thomas, and our senior ecologist, Mr. Greenslade.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. All applications subject to planning must follow the mitigation hierarchy, which stresses 4 key points in terms of ecological impact. These are followed sequentially. The first step being avoidance, that there must be due care to avoid negative impacts to biodiversity through careful site selection and through careful project design to minimize impacts. Secondly, we move on to minimization. If impact cannot be avoided, then we must seek to minimize the impact of the proposal as much as possible. Moving thirdly to restoration, if the impact remains even after these 2 measures are put in place, restoration must be implemented for the proposal. And then finally, we move to offsetting as an absolute last resort. Residual impacts must be offset either within the red line boundary or within wider site ownership. Next slide. Can we move to the next slide, please? Planning policy guidance states that direct effects of development can cause the loss or deterioration of ancient woodland and veteran trees, such as damaging or destroying all or part of them, including their soils, which is particularly important for ancient woodlands, as the majority of the designation is from abiotic factors in the soil, not strictly to do with the age of trees, as these have a turnover and lifespan. Damaging roots and understory, such as the vegetation under the taller trees, damaging or compacting soil, such as increased traffic, increasing levels of air, light pollution, noise and vibration, changing the woodland ecosystem by removing the woodland edge or thinning the trees, causing greater wind damage and soil loss. Next slide, please. Planning policy guidance also states the indirect effects that development can cause on the deterioration or loss of ancient woodland. These include reducing the amount of semi-natural habitats next to ancient woodland and providing important dispersal and feeding habitat for woodland species, increasing the amount of dust, light, water, air and soil pollution, increasing disturbance to wildlife, such as from noise from additional peoples and traffic, increasing damage to habitat, for example, the trampling of plants and erosion of soil by people accessing the woodland or tree root protection areas. And finally, increasing the risk of damage to people and property by falling branches or trees requiring tree management that could cause habitat deterioration. When assessing this planning application, I assessed it against inspectors' previous decisions for very similar planning applications, which led to me reviewing the Lilas Wood decision by H. Berkshire. This was a very similar planning application that proposed a wedding venue in an ancient woodland within a site clearing, as we see in this application. This appeal was dismissed for the summary paragraph 19 in front of us, that the woodland was currently used as a wedding venue under permitted development rights and had, because of this, resulted in deterioration through vegetation loss and soil compaction. Whilst the venue was located in a natural clearing in the woodland, at the time of the inspected site visit, it was largely devoid of any shrub layers and ground flora that would normally be associated with the woodland. Any increase in human traffic, any increased human traffic on site, along with more permanent sitting of various structures, would only inhibit such plant growth and deter wildlife, all of which would result in further deterioration of the ancient woodland. That planning application sought to extend permitted development rights from 28 days a year to 45 and was dismissed by the inspector due to credible harm to the ancient woodland. This planning application seeks to extend further beyond 45 days to 6 months of the year for 5 years. I think it's important to look at the ecological impact assessment that was supplied by the applicant, which surveyed the site and gave a good indication of potential impacts. There were some limitations, such as in paragraph 3.4, the site survey was conducted at an unsuitable time of year for botanical surveys, that being the 9th of September 2024 during the winter period. This is important as many ancient woodland indicator species and ground flora would have likely been hidden during this time. Paragraph 5.7 states that access to the woodlands will be prohibited with clear signposting and that this would be adequate mitigation to stop any soil compaction within the ancient woodland. Paragraph 5.18 states that all noise and light associated with the events will be located within the TPs and paths, and that no light and no noise would spread beyond the TPs that are currently located on the site. Paragraph 5.15 to 5.16 states that the site is a high-quality bat habitat and the wedding venue will coincide with the first 3 hours of activity until the time where it will finish activity at 11:45 p.m. Paragraph 7.3 states that enhancements of bat and bird boxes on the surrounding trees will be located in immediate proximity to the venue, with the closest enhancements being bat boxes within 15 metres of the teepees, and then moving further outwards, creating log piles for reptile species and amphibians along track plans that lead to the wedding venues. Here is a snippet from the ecological impact assessment displaying where these enhancements will be located. I have concerns about the location of these enhancements as they're extremely close to a site of human disturbance with light and sound, especially for nocturnal species such as bats. If we look to the north of that plan, we see the ceremony tent that is surrounded on both sides by bat boxes within 5 metres of the proposal. If we look further to the west and the east, we see log piles that are placed directly onto tracks which will be used by wedding guests to access other parts of the site and to enter the site, which will be very prone to human disturbance at any point during the day. Thank you.
Further, Chairman, from a tree point of view, from looking at the woodland, it's germane to look at changes that have occurred in recent years. So we start with an air photo of 2016, and you can see that there's quite a close canopy to the ancient woodland. You can see the trees within the Queen's plantation, which is in the middle, a lot smaller. And then you can see the ancient woodland of Mount Close Copse as well, which is to the east, and again, the large trees. So you can see quite dense and fairly complete canopy cover of the mature trees in both of these ancient woodlands in 2016. So if you could have the next slide, please. This is 2025, and the clearing has been utilised under PD rights for some time, and it's evident where there are tracks, and it's also evident where trees have been removed. If we could move to the next slide, please. So I visited as part of the previous application, and this is to give you a flavour of the typical woodland structure. This is Mount Close Copse, which is the ancient woodland to the east, and this is viewed from footpath 2, so this is a public view. And you can see you've got large standard trees, which are ash and oak, and then smaller trees, which form the understory, and those are hazel. And this is March, so the bluebells are just emerging, and there's some primroses as well at the foot of that ash tree on the left-hand side. Can we have the next slide, please? This was the clearing in March, and I was present at a time when the stumps that have been shown in Lauren's photos have been removed, and they were being backfilled. So there's an excavator on site. Can I have the next slide, please? Whilst I was there, I walked into the clearing, and I could see that there were some ancient woodland indicators. These include bluebells and wood anemones. These aren't very good quality of pictures, I'm afraid. But I made a note of several ancient woodland indicators, including early dog violet and other woodland species such as celandine. These are specialist plants. They take many years, sometimes decades to establish. They colonize very slowly. They're readily outcompeted. They're susceptible to trampling. And you can see the vehicle tracking has crushed and has exposed the bare soil. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So this is within Highwood Copse. This is the ceremony tent clearing. And you can see, again, it's a similar sort of structure. You've got the oak and ash standards, the large trees, which are the timber crop. Beneath them, you've got the understory of hazel, and then the ground floor is emerging and it's bluebells. You can see the green around the clearing, and that's evidently being graded off at some point. Can we have the next slide, please? And again, that's the situation where the clearing tent is located now. The ceremony tent is located now. There was an arboricultural impact assessment carried out. Several trees were identified for removal because of ash dieback, and those are on the right-hand side, 3 ash trees. But when we were on site, we also noticed a couple of other trees on the left-hand side had also been removed. So I've made a note of that. Can we have the next slide, please? Because of this development pressure, it's appropriate for the council to consider whether to make a tree preservation order or not. And in doing that, I assessed the site in June. And this is the view from footpath 2, looking into Highwood Copse. And you can see that there is the tents are on site, the teepees are on site, and there's a vehicle on the left-hand side. And the trackway in has been covered in aggregate, or part of it has been covered in aggregate since March. Okay. The next slide, please. The AIA makes mention of the fact that this is a clearing and it resembles a park. I think it describes it as a parkland. However, parkland is a separate biodiversity action plan habitat. So this is a photo further up the footpath. This is parkland itself, and there is a medieval, possibly a medieval wood bank there in the photo. It might also be a park pale. So that's just to give members an idea of what the parkland habitat should look like. Can we have the next slide, please? Oh, we've seen that, yeah. Can we have the next slide, please? So this is some of the cordwood that was removed. You can see there's a stump at the top left, middle left of the photo, and that's one of those ash stumps has been removed. I'm stood roughly where the location of a cherry that was also removed. That's in excess of what was recommended by the AIA. And in the middle, you can see this sort of grading line. If you run the cursor up and down the middle of that, just slightly to the left, please. Thank you. You see the bare earth there. That's the grading line where the soil is being pushed to one side. And can we have the next slide, please? So this is Highwood Copse at the time of our visit, and then you can see a classic ash stool. You can see hazel, and then you can see with the disturbed ground where I'm stood next to the ceremony tent, you can see we're getting ruderal species, dock and bramble developing. Can we have the next slide, please? Again, a large coppice stool and some cordwood, and again, the ruderal species developing in the clearing. So the ancient woodland species, the ancient woodland indicators, the typical ground flora, that's been removed, and these adventitious ruderal species are taking hold. We have the next slide, please. Same again, the light green is dock and bramble is the darker green, and we've got some nettles as well behind the logs. We have the next slide, please. This is an area where the catering tent was located, and members might not have seen this, but this was just after the meeting broke up. So you can see that the effect of the catering tent has been to shade the ground flora, and the grass has died. We have the next slide, please. And just for the benefit of members, this is footpath 2. This is along Mount Close Copse with the other ancient woodland, just to give a sense of the public amenity of some of the ancient woodland. We have the next slide, please. So in terms of the PBG, as the senior ecologist has indicated, there are various issues to look for in terms of assessing an application, and these have been discussed, and we can talk about those at debate. if you have any questions on that. But these are highlighted by, I've highlighted these, picked these out because these, I believe, are effects that are occurring now and will increase with this application. We have the next slide, please. It's worth noting that the proposal extends over the growing season from April to September. It extends the period of time of these structures are in place. There are bare patches likely to be colonised by ruderal species, which we've seen in the photos. There is also mowing, which is taking place in the main clearing, and that will remove any tree seedlings, any natural regeneration of the woodland and further stress ground flora. There's an increased target occupancy because of if we're moving from permitted development rights to occupancy during over 6 months, then people are going to be in situ for longer, and then the risk associated with hazards such as dead wood increases. And then the knock-on of that is there'll be increased tree removals and other tree works. And we're removing a habitat, standing deadwood, etc. We have the next slide, please. There'll be increased vehicle movements, significantly increased footfall in the clearings on the paths and potentially beyond. And this will result in increased trampling and crushing of seedlings. So the wood won't naturally necessarily regenerate. Ground flora will also be damaged and potentially more soil erosion. Increased vehicle movement and footfall will lead to soil compaction, which increases soil bulk density, reduces root penetration, root respiration, it lowers soil aeration, it lowers soil water and increases the risk of runoff. So these are all cumulative effects which will affect the trees within the wood and surrounding the ceremony areas. And root death can cause crown dieback because of the connection between vessel elements. And then you have a major deadwood, which then will require removal. I think that's my last slide. Thank you.
Okay, so just in terms of policy compliance, there are some policies that this application does comply with, particularly in terms of design quality and residential amenity. But on the right, this is a list of policies that the proposal doesn't comply with either in whole or in part. In terms of weighting in the planning balance, paragraph 193 of the NPPF states that development resulting in the loss or deterioration of an irreplaceable habitat, such as ancient woodland, ancient or veteran trees, should be refused unless there are wholly exceptional reasons and a suitable compensation strategy exists. Paragraph 193 of the NPPF therefore indicates that 2 criteria must be satisfied to overcome the guidance to refuse. In terms of the first criterion, footnote 70 of the NPPF describes what constitutes wholly exceptional reasons. This includes nationally significant infrastructure projects and where the associated public benefit would clearly outweigh the loss or deterioration of the habitat. Such infrastructure projects are detailed in Part 3 of the Planning Act 2008. Such include, for example, onshore generating stations with a capacity of over 50 megawatts, electric power lines, airports, and railway lines. Due to the significantly high environmental value of ancient woodlands, any loss or deterioration is only acceptable when large-scale development such as these are proposed. The public benefit therefore needs to be exceptionally significant to justify an approval of development within an ancient woodland, and without it, such development should be refused. While it is undeniable that there would be a strong local economic benefit, such is not synonymous with the public economic benefit that results from national infrastructure projects. As a result, the amount of public benefit does not amount to a wholly exceptional reason not to refuse the application. In terms of the second criterion, a suitable compensation strategy must be in place to justify the harm. The proposed mitigation would not have a significant impact, and little effective compensation has been proposed. Just to summarize, the amount of economic benefit does not constitute a wholly exceptional reason not to refuse the application, and there is inadequate mitigation or compensation. The proposal does not comply with most of the relevant local plan policies or the NPPF. I'm nearly finished. I would like members to please turn to page 65, where we can look at a previous appeal. This was referred to by Mr. Greenslade. The application was at Lila's Wood. So the appeal deals with a very similar proposal. The application was for a wedding venue within an ancient woodland that had been operating under the 28-day PD rights. The application was to increase this to 45 days a year. Members should note that the proposed development exceeds 45 days per year, and the proposed development is to permit the use of the site for 6 months per year. The development included similar structures, including teepees, a mobile toilet, and associated shelters. In terms of character and activity impacts, paragraph 16, the inspector stated that although public views of the enclosed space within the woodland are limited, that does not alter the fact that the presence of structures and pathways and the clearance of vegetation have had an undoubted effect on the character of the site. Paragraph 17 states that the change in character had affected the land even in periods where no weddings were taking place. Comparisons were made to a cricket pitch and associated buildings. Matches may only be played on weekends and evenings during the summer months, but the use remains that of a cricket pitch during the winter months and over any other period, for example, between each wedding when matches aren't played. Oh, my apologies. I'll just move this closer. Sorry, hopefully you've heard the rest of my presentation. Oh, okay. This is better. Great, okay. So just going back to my presentation, paragraph 53. Okay, so this talks about the weight attached to economic benefits. The inspector stated that the wedding business would undoubtedly have both direct and indirect economic benefits in terms of job creation and the use of local suppliers. The average number of wedding guests per wedding was in the region of 100, and guests would spend money locally. The inspector estimated that with 14 to 15 weddings per year, roughly 1,500 people would attend on an annual basis. Members are reminded that for the proposed development of 1 to 2 weddings per month, this would result in a double this figure at 36 weddings in 6 months and 4,320 guests per year. The inspector noted that most customers would be in the local area, and if the bride and groom lived locally, it was more likely to travel to and from a wedding on the day as opposed to staying in local hotels. The inspector noted that whilst the precise economic benefit was difficult to quantify, they had no doubt that there would be significant knock-on benefits to local suppliers and hotels. The inspector attributed moderate to significant weight in the planning balance. In terms of paragraph 68, economic benefit versus harm, the inspector stated, to my mind, the substantial weight I must attach to inappropriate development in addition to the likely harm to ancient woodland and protected species is not clearly outweighed by economic benefits associated with the scheme. In terms of the local economic benefits and their ultimate weight, the inspector stated that very special circumstances required to justify the grant of planning permission do not exist, and I shall refuse to grant planning permission and dismiss the appeal on this ground, on ground A. This concludes my presentation. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so thank you very much, Lauren, and thank you very much, and John. Paul. You've obviously got some highways matters to raise, I'm sure.
Thank you, Chairman. Access to the proposal will be obtained from Welford Road. There are two access points proposed. The southerly access that is immediately adjacent the M4 is for the entrance to the proposal, with the northern access being the exit. Your officers have no concerns regarding the access arrangements to and from the site, or neither do we have any concerns regarding any site layout aspects internally. Our concerns are regarding the sustainability of the location with regards to transportation. There is very little, if any, means to travel to the site for a wedding by any other means except by motor vehicle. There are some bus stops, 1.5 kilometres to the north at Welford and 1.5 kilometres to the south at Wickham, where the service number 4 does pass through a few times a day, at best bi-hourly. And obviously to reach those bus stops in your wedding finery, you would need to walk along rural lanes where there are no footways. And of course, at times when it is dark, the routes are, of course, as they're rural, unlit. There are some calculations, particularly from paragraph 6.3, for 120 guests. It is assumed that on average there'd be 2.5 guests per car. So that's 48 cars in and 48 cars out every time there is a wedding. And then, of course, there are vendors such as bar staff, caterers, photographers, DJs, etc., which would increase that number from 56 in to 56 out every time there is a wedding. Currently, the site has permitted use for 28 weddings a year. My understanding that the proposal before you is for an unlimited number of weddings per year. So therefore, there will be potentially a significant increase in traffic generation to a location that is unsustainable in transport terms. This is therefore contrary, as has already been mentioned, to the MPPF, where paragraph 110 states that significant development should be focused on locations which are or can be made sustainable through limiting the need to travel and offering a general choice of transport modes. This can help to reduce congestion and emissions. Clearly, this cannot be done in this case. This proposal is also contrary to some of the new policies in our new local plan, including policy SP19, transport development that generates a transport impact will be required to minimise the impact of all forms of travel on the environment in accordance with West Berkshire's declared climate emergency and environment strategy. I would therefore advise the committee that this proposal fails to comply with national and local policies with regards to climate change and regards to transport policies that this site located in an unsustainable location, and therefore officers also recommend refusal on sustainability with transport grounds, in addition to the reasons that we've already heard tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Right, in the absence of the Parish Council and objector, I now call upon Will Huxley as a supporter. And again, you've got 5 minutes and we will notify you after 4 minutes, Will.
Do you have me? Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, today I stand here before you not just as the landowner, but also as a lifelong resident of our cherished rural community. For over 400 years, farming has been the heartbeat of Welford since my family became custodians of the estate in 1618. As times have changed, so too must we. diversification is more crucial than ever for sustainable estate management. Farmers are under unprecedented pressure, facing the worst harvest in 33 years. Grain prices have fallen below production costs, leading to significant financial losses. Additionally, the recent withdrawal of the government subsidies, first with the transition from the EU and now with the sudden removal of the SFI scheme, has left us with a staggering 25% revenue gap and putting an annual hole of over £200,000 in my farming business. Meanwhile, costs of seed, fertilizer, labour, machinery costs all continue to soar. So diversification is not a choice, it is a necessity. Now, Forest Edge Teepees is a light touch, temporary and fully reversible. It's been operating in our woodland for 5 years without a single noise or traffic complaint. The setup that you observed on the site visit will be completely dismantled next week and not returning till next spring. And both the teepee and ceremony areas were selected due to being in natural clearings with well-established access points. The only trees to have been felled was very sick or dead ash trees. And these would have been removed regardless of the venue and will be restocked in the coming planting season. This project is a lifeline in our diversification plan. And while it won't solve all our problems, it represents a significant step forward in resilience and sustainability, enabling the estate to thrive independently without excessive reliance on government aid. The estate is currently responsible for 200 tenants, employees and contractors on a daily basis. And we have a duty of care to this community, and it is my responsibility to ensure this small local community has somewhere to live and work, and for that we need a resilient business. My family has dedicated their lives to the stewardship of this land. Our woodlands are under threat from diseases like ash dieback and deer pressure that decimate the understory. The additional revenue from a diversification initiative can significantly aid our efforts and protect and manage our woodlands. And in time, we may restore our ancient woodlands and effectively manage our deer population. But we do need the extra resources. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome the TPO that's been put in place across the area of the lease. And I hope this helps the tree officer and anyone else feel at ease that no trees will be felled without careful consideration from within this room. We've been managing our woodlands with a robust woodland management plan overseen by Wessex Woodland, which includes a full felling licence, which expires on the 15th of September of this year. We have a new plan in place, which is ready for dispatch, which will allow us to continue to responsibly manage our woodland using techniques such as regenerative felling, which is the restocking with broadleaf native species. I urge the committee to view this situation through a broad lens. We have planted 12,000 new trees in the past 18 months. We've created 1,000 metres of new hedgerows, and we've converted 161 acres of arable land into habitat creation. 74 of those acres transformed in the last year. Our commitment to nature recovery and woodland management is steadfast, reinforced by 30 supporting letters of local residents that highlight our dedication to responsible land stewardship. I believe that the reasons set out here should qualify as wholly exceptional to operate within this woodland. More revenue for woodland management and nature protection, and creating a safer, more resilient local community. I sincerely ask for your support in this diversification effort. This represents a remarkable opportunity to bolster local business and secure the revenue streams we need necessary to protect and nurture this land that we all cherish. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, within your 5 minutes. Questions, if you just stand at the lectern, please. Right, Councillor Foot.
Yeah, thank you, Will, very much for that impassioned speech, duly noted. Could I ask, in the report that we have, I just wondered if there was any other site in the estate that you could have considered using for the wedding venue, bearing in mind the very delicate infrastructure, habitat, environment that we've heard from the tree officer and our environment officer. Did you have any other place that would be suitable?
Yeah, thank you for that. We selected this this area because of it being a natural clearing. There's been a clearing, there's been larger tree cover, but actually under that tree cover has always been a natural glade. It's been well used by other agricultural activities. Therefore, the access and getting into the woodland made it an obvious choice. And we don't have many glades where there wasn't significant, where there wasn't felling needed. There, anywhere else there would need to be, clear felling. And actually, we are a very dynamic estate. We like to think that every piece of land is doing something, whether it's marginal land in wildflower meadows or a working apple orchard, or indeed a clearing that could work really well as a venue. Every little piece of land is used, and this was the obvious choice. It's also very close to the church, which has seen great benefit from the uplift of weddings within what's been going on over the past 5 years. I think the applicant will go into more detail on that, but it's worth mentioning that not all weddings use the ceremony area. Many do use the church or indeed the registry office. But from a church perspective and being part of the Welford Parish, the church has seen massive uplift and able to carry out work that it wouldn't ordinarily have been able to do. So there are a number of different benefits.
Okay. Something further, Councillor Foot?
Thanks very much, Chair. Well, I do have a supplementary. At the moment, the weddings are allowed for 28 days. Is there any reason why you couldn't carry on that model rather than expanding it in the way you've described?
It's about scaling the business and bringing more revenue into the estate and indeed the local community through not only Forest Edge TPs, who are a family-run local business, but also the wider economic benefit for all the suppliers. Being able to scale the business, really 28 days, including set up and take down only, as it's mentioned somewhere, you can do 8 weddings. Really, to scale a business, we need to be doing many more from that. I mean, woodland management alone, we're very well, there's no woodland grants that we're receiving at the moment. We will within our new plan, which is being issued. Hopefully it will dovetail with the end of our current one. And we do receive DEFRA grants for the help of woodland management. But if anyone's ever commissioned a tree surgeon to do any work, you may know that they are quite expensive contractors to employ, and these woodland grants, although we're very grateful for them, they would not. I mean, we are not nearly covering the cost of even having to manage the woodland. The other problem is with a farming business which is in a really dire situation. Things like forestry budgets and those sorts of things, we have to reallocate those budgets to supporting our employees or buying seed to go in our fields. I have no resources this year, probably won't next year, especially with SFI going down. We do hear it will return, but in what capacity, we don't know. There is a serious hole in my cash flow, and we need to be able to scale these businesses to actually make them worthwhile and be able to benefit the landscape.
Okay, right, Councillor Thraj.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Buckley. It was very interesting and very in terms of your impassioned speech, and it was good to know that your family history as well you touched upon, and it was good to know that it was a family-run business, a farm, not industrial one. In terms of understanding this, you mentioned about additional revenues from it. You mentioned 25%. My question is is there any negative impact if this bedding revenue is lost, or if from that application point of view, it's going to be for 6 months, is there any negative impact of not having this business in terms of running this farm and their community support?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons we bought an operator in to operate within the woodland rather than doing it in-house was it significantly reduced my costs in investing in the business. It's all on the operator, really, and they pay us a rate. Now, that rate is almost 100%. My gross is my net, pretty much. There's a little bit of tree surgery, there's a little bit of, but really a very, very high margin business, which allows me to then have additional resources, which I wouldn't normally have, to spend on woodland management plans, to spend on new planting. We've created 3 new woodlands in the past 18 months. 2 of those are extending they're not ancient woodlands, but they're natural, semi-natural old woodlands. And we've been able to extend those and create eco pathways. It's those resources from a high margin business, which I get from tenanting it out, gives us serious resources. At the moment, it doesn't, but you know, we have had some input, some that we've been able to put back in. But of course, 8 weddings is not a huge amount. But on paper, the scale is there, and this could really significantly help us as a business and really plug some of that £200,000 deficit.
Further questions? Well, no, I think you can return back to the public benches.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I now call upon Kerry Fletcher as the agent. Okay, again, 5 minutes. I think you've been in that spot before in the past anyway, so you know the process.
Thank you. Good evening. As explained by officers, planning permission is sought for a temporary period of 5 years for the use of the application site for up to 6 months a year for TP weddings. Officers have made various numerical assumptions regarding the number of guests and vehicles that will visit the application site. However, this is based on 1 to 2 weddings every week for a 6-month period and a maximum of 120 guests at each wedding. The applicant also operates at Sheepdrove Organic Farm in Lambourne, where they will host just 20 weddings this year. The average number of guests per wedding in 2024 was 92, so use of these figures would significantly reduce the numbers set out in the officer's report, which are maximum figures. Forest Edge teepees strongly promote the use of local suppliers, and couples typically use the applicant's recommendations for florists, catering companies, photographers, etc., and a high number of guests stay in local accommodation, providing indirect support for the local economy. There have been 30 letters of support for the application, primarily from local suppliers. The Council's Economic Development Officer also supports the application. Forest Edge teepees encourage guests to use coaches or to car share, and they operate a successful Little Green Book, which incentivises guests to have 20 or less cars on site. Furthermore, wedding venues are typically located in rural locations or where guests choose to travel by car. 3 of the 8 weddings in 2025 have used the church at Welford, and weddings at Welford Church have financed its recent rewiring. The proposals utilise an existing clearing in the woodland and would not involve the felling of any trees. The only trees recently felled have been due to ash dieback and safety reasons. The ground area within which the teepees are erected is mainly grasses, and whilst within a designated ancient woodland, is not typical ancient woodland ground flora and can therefore tolerate shading and soil compaction. Wood chip paths and flooring within the teepees also prevent soil compaction, and footfall will also be outside root protection areas. Ecological surveys have confirmed the grasses do not contain any ecological species of note, and likewise, there are no ancient woodland species present within the clearings. Cars would be parked outside the ancient woodland and would travel along existing historic hard surface tracks. There are no statutory restrictions on accessing ancient woodland by foot or vehicle, and Welford Park Estate regularly pass through the woodland, including the application site for maintenance purposes, including for pheasant shoots. There are public rights of way through ancient woodlands throughout West Berkshire District, all of which are highly likely to attract more footfall than the proposals, which would see up to 120 pedestrians for circa 20 times a year. As referred to by officers, the estate have a woodland management plan for the whole estate, which is worked up with and agreed by the Forestry Commission. A woodland management plan could be required specific to the application site by way of condition. A wedding management plan could also be required, setting out measures to limit the extent of the area within which weddings can take place and guests can walk, for example, through post and rope barriers. Details of low-level festoon lighting could also be required. Officers have referred to the need to demonstrate wholly exceptional circumstances. However, the only examples provided in the MPPF relate to infrastructure projects, which does not allow for any proportionality in circumstances such as this application. The proposals would relate to an existing clearing that does not include any ancient woodland ground flora. The proposals would deliver significant financial benefit for Welford Park Estate, as well as supporting local rural economy. Welford Park Estate are responsible for maintaining the substantial estate, including the ancient woodland, with decreasing financial support. Proposals such as the TP weddings help to finance ongoing maintenance, as well as new projects such as the Welford Wildlife Reserve rewilding and aspirations such as a deer fence around the entire ancient woodland, which would be of overwhelming benefit to the woodland, with deer being one of its main threats. In summary, the proposals would involve a fully reversible use within an existing clearing. Conditions are proposed to ensure activity does not extend beyond the existing clearings and to manage lighting. The financial benefit to Welford Park Estate would enable both ongoing maintenance and the delivery of future projects that would deliver enhancements to the ancient woodland. Without the ability to diversify, these projects simply could not take place. We therefore request that planning permission is granted for the proposed temporary period of 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, questions? Councillor Foot first.
Yes, thanks very much, Kerry. You seem to question what we heard from the ecology officer at West Berkshire about the fact that there was no problem or no issue, if I understood your submission correctly, with the underflora and the flowers and things that are on the ground, which I understood when our ecology officer reported there would be. So my question to you is, could I ask where your source of information was for that, please? Thanks.
Yes, so an ecological appraisal submitted with the planning application, and that's informed by surveys of the site. My understanding from the ecologist that's been out on site is, whilst it's an ancient woodland, this is a natural clearing, and it's grasses that are present in the clearing, and the grasses themselves don't have any sort of ancient woodland ground flora. So the ancient woodland species are within the woodland that surrounds the clearing itself, rather than there. And that's informed by a survey that's on the site by the ecologist that's employed by the applicant. So in terms of the council ecologists, I don't know whether they've been to site themselves, but they can probably answer that.
Well, I think I saw lots of photographs taken by our senior tree officer.
Oh, the tree officer's definitely been to site, yes, but I'm not sure about the ecology officer. So.
Well, I do believe they do communicate amongst themselves, and obviously we can all see the photographs, so thank you.
Okay, is that all right? Okay, you want a further question?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, you mentioned that the woodland management plan had been approved or accepted. In our report on page 47, if I can just read this out to you, it's section 6.16, and it says as follows: a draft woodland management plan has been submitted with this application. As this woodland management plan is only in draft form and has not been accepted by the Forestry Commission, it has been deemed that the conservation and woodland maintenance measures proposed are acceptable or effective. Furthermore, the woodland management plan relates to the maintenance of the entire estate rather than this specific site, and does not propose mitigation or compensation for the harm that would result from the wedding venue. The woodland management plan, therefore, has very limited weight in the planning balance. So I wondered if you'd like to comment on that, please.
Yeah, so the woodland management plan wasn't submitted when the application was originally submitted, but it had some reference in it to events at Welford Park supporting the overall woodland management. So we submitted it to the council as evidence of the Forestry Commission having knowledge of that. It's for the whole of Welford Park. It's not just for the application site, so it doesn't refer specifically to application site. My understanding is, and we've sent correspondence into the council, it's been accepted by the Forestry Commission, but it's sat with the admin team waiting to be formally signed off. So it is correct that it isn't approved, but for all intents and purposes, it is. But because it relates to the whole of Welford Park, it doesn't have anything specific to this site, which is why we suggested that we could submit a woodland management plan specific for the TP site, which would drill in on the wider one, agreed with the Forestry Commission.
Thank you.
Okay. Further questions, members? No? Okay, you can return. Okay, I'll now call upon the ward member.
So coming from the public benches tonight, Chairman. So, Chairman, as you've heard, you first need to decide whether you think the term wholly exceptional reasons can apply to a development like this with a limited time span. If it can, is this particular site appropriate? Now, in January, I failed to use my member call-in for the same development without a time limit. I didn't dream it would be refused. So I suggested to the applicant they withdraw and resubmit for just 5 years with a beefed up plan for mitigating of any of the harm that you've heard might happen. Now, the NPPF, with this phrase in relation to irreplaceable habitats, is targeting the massive developments like the M4 or HS2. It's not something like this that is the target. You've heard what kind of landowner we have here. Mr. Puxley's approach is typical of what I call legacy landowning. It's quite different to other types of landowning, vanity landowning and institutional. It's the kind we must support if we want sustainable landowning in the full sense. Economically, because income from farming and forestry is so uncertain. Socially, through helping to achieve a more cohesive, locally employed community. And environmentally. The objections of our tree officer and ecologist are perfectly understandable if we were dealing with other kinds of landowning. They aren't invested in sustainability in the same way. And in my 20 years on this committee, I've experienced how they treat our planning system. They game it, sadly often with success. Now, I grew up in the countryside 60 years ago, but it's very different now. Climate change, a huge challenge, but nobody knows better than a legacy landowner how to be a responsible steward of the natural world that he is looking after, for their own children's sake. And if only government were given the chance, they'd do the right thing. Technology offers huge opportunities to adapt to climate change, but it needs investment in equipment and the upskilling of workers. Food markets controlled by supermarkets and multinationals are another change in the game. Now, the council launched its Rural Business Forum in 2022, and many legacy owners like Will, land managers and farmers that work for them, came. Few of the other kinds. And we know what kind we can work with. Result, we've got whole estate plans now in our local plan. Major estates like Welford Park are queuing up to work with us to develop their business plans. Diversification away from farming and forestry will mean more planning applications like this, more multifunctional land use. The government accepts that. So does the DEFRA-funded National Landscape Team in its management plan, which is soon coming to the council to adopt. And it's our duty to involve them and note that they did not object to this. So it follows that some development, even in ancient woodland, which comprises 42% of our wooded area in this in our national landscape, can be made acceptable. North Wessex Downs brings in £10 for every pound we put into their core funding. They facilitate farmer-led groups of farmers learning from one another and collaborating in cross-farm land management initiatives. And Welford Park is part of such a group. When I became planning portfolio holder in 23, we were determined to become more collaborative with landowners. And with Eric Owens, we started a round of visits to rural landowners. And that's when I first met Will Puxley. So I believe you should give the support of economic development very great weight. I'm not asking you to treat this particular landowner and his wedding venue tenant on this site differently how you might treat others who have his approach to land management. It's not personal
Coming
to
up
the
4
person.
minutes.
But he is the kind of land stewardship that he proposes, which is public facing and community minded, that we must support, or we go backwards in sustainability terms in the face of climate change. So supporting the right kind of approach to sustainability is vital. How can any harm to the woodland be mitigated, you might ask? I'm no expert, but who is? I mean, ecology is a very immature subject. And whilst our officers here undoubtedly know much more than the rest of us about tree health and species conservation, I suggest to you that modern farmers like Will may know more in respect of their own unique patch. And England's 32 national landscape sites have the experts dealing with a more holistic set of factors than we do in our planning authority. And they influence land management in the rural areas. And there is a mismatch sometimes between what DEFRA advises and what our planning policy enables. So I suggest you look at this way forward when you question
Just coming up to 5 minutes. If you
give the applicant
please.
the green light on condition they commit to a thorough woodland management plan for just this site, then in 5 years our officers can judge with evidence whether their assertions now about significant harm stack up. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Right. Members, questions for Tony? No? You got off lightly, Tony. Okay. Okay, members, questions to officers now. And I think what you must make sure is that you ask the appropriate officer, because you've got a chance now of questioning 4 officers. So please identify which officer you wish to answer your question. Right, Councillor Farage.
Thank you, Chairman. I have questions to all the officers, but I'll start with Mr. Goddard on the transport or the vehicle trips. So there was an assumption that all the numbers, I'm not going to all the number crunching, but I'm just wanted to understand from Mr. Goddard that the 48 vehicles, does it include any buses or any other bigger vehicles than considered? And on the public transportation one, it was mentioned that there is a nearby bus stop 1.5 kilometer. Again, question to Mr. Goddard on that point, was officers considering that guests coming to a wedding with all that wedding dresses and all those trends, why would they choose a public transport when they can effectively choose to organize themselves to come in a private vehicle, albeit more, it may be a taxi or a bus or something. So the whole vehicle trips and then all those considerations are, in my opinion, is not correct, but I wanted to understand from officers in terms of that calculations. If
Did you understand the question?
Chairman, I think Councillor Amatharaj has hit the nail on the head. It is, in my view, very unlikely that people will travel to the site by any other means except by motor car. It is very unlikely that they will travel there by bus. The services, as mentioned, are limited. There's only a few each way per day, and there certainly aren't any buses available during the evenings there. The calculations that are 56 in, 56 out, no, they include cars. They do not include buses in any way, because, as I said, it would be unlikely that buses would be used to transport people to and from the site, in our view. Thank you.
Councillor Gaines, then Councillor Dick.
Can I ask Mr. Thomas, you showed us a picture, Mr. Thomas, a photograph originally of the canopy in 2016 and then one today. Is there any chance we could actually look at that again, those photographs? Because I'd like to know, because we were assured by the applicant that there was no reduction in it was a natural area, whereas it looked on that picture like it had been felled, or trees have been felled. Is it possible to do that? Ms Hill?
That's a good question. What does he think it shows?
Yeah.
The two photos, yeah.
And the question would be, what do you assume from that, those two, the differences in those two photos?
I'm sorry.
Wait till we see them, because to remind us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that possible, Mr. Tray?
We will be able to. It's just doing something a bit funny at the moment. Can we
Okay,
come back to that in a moment?
okay, we can, certainly can.
Work on it. Thanks.
Okay. Well, shall we continue on? And Councillor Gaines, you in the next. Sorry,
Chairman, it's
you're
just
going
me
to
that
come.
asked the
Yeah,
question.
okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Dixon, after you.
Thank you, Chairman. It's for the tree officer, I think. We had an email a day ago, 2 days ago, and it was quite a convoluted email, and it was drawing a distinction between a license for felling and a license for thinning. But it wasn't really obvious what the point that was being made. I don't know if you're the author, Mr. Thomas, but you'll know the memo I'm talking about. Do you?
Are you referring to the update report?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. No, I wasn't the author, but this was in consultation. So we found out on site there was a felling license. As part of the application, checked on the Forestry Commission website, and not been able to find one. So my comments originally were, there's no felling license as far as I'm aware. So the applicant kindly sent through their felling license, which is, as he said, runs out in September. And for this compartment, which is compartment 19B, there is permission to thin, which is a specific operation to remove the poor quality trees generally, because you're after a timber crop at the end of your harvest period. So by removing the poorer specimens, you're encouraging the better specimens to grow straighter. You're reducing competition. They get more light.
Sorry, I understand that I can guess the results, but does that paint the application in a better light or a worse light, that update?
There's a difference between thinning and removing for safety.
Yes.
And it seems to me that some of these trees have been removed because there is a target, and the target is the wedding use, as opposed to the thinning operation, which is something to do with improving your crop.
Thank you. Can I have a supplementary on that, Chairman? Very
Yes, you can.
Thank you. So the things that have been talked about generally, are they capable of being ameliorated sufficiently by the offer of a woodland management plan, in your opinion? It's a yes or no question, really.
Unfortunately, because it's ancient woodland, I think my answer would be no.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, coming back to you. I think it's up on the screen.
Yeah, so I've actually asked Mr. Thomas the question. So what does he sort of glean from the difference between 2008-16 and current coverage on that site?
So as I said, 2016, you can see the differentiation between the larger crowns of highwood copse, and you can see the queen copse, which is a smaller plantation to the south. Could you just get your cursor on there, please? Do you mind? So that's highwood copse, that's the site. And then just to the south, you've got queen copse. So those are smaller trees. Highwood copse has those mature trees, which are oak and ash, some cherry, very large, 20-metre, etc. So in the following photo, a number of them have been removed. Now as the applicant said, that was due to ash dieback, but then there's ash dieback elsewhere in the wood, but in my mind, there's no target because there's no use. So there's no target, no risk. That's the simple calculation.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Abbs?
Yeah, thank you very much. To the same question to the tree officer and then to the ecology officer. How certain are you that damage has been caused and is being caused by what is happening on site at this time and what is proposed?
Well, I'd say a very high percentage because of the trampling and the vehicle movements that I've alluded to.
Could you make it easy for me? Give
Sorry.
me a 1 out of 100. Is it 10%, 90% certainty, 99%? Give me a percentage, please.
I'd say 75.
75.
I think.
Okay, thank you. Same question as the ecology officer. Thank you.
I'd say I have strong certainty that there is ongoing degradation from the current permitted development that will be exacerbated by allowing this for a further 6 months a year, and 90% certain that it will degrade further, and there is degradation from the current permitted development.
And finally, to the traffic officer, your certainty in this is what percentage, please?
With regards to an increase in traffic of the proposed...
Your reason for refusal was viability of or sustainability of the location. So how certain are you of that?
100%.
100%, thank you.
Because it isn't.
Okay. Right, Councillor Amathraj.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, a question to the tree officer. Mr. Thomas, so there's in the reports of the tree protection order. Can I please understand when was it signed or when was it completed? And if it is during the process of this application, what triggered that tree protection order, considering that you answered Councillor Abb's question in terms of there is already degradation or there's within the current permitted development. So would that tree protection order would have been required after this application, knowing that this would have been a more extended event? So that's my question. So why that was triggered and was it not necessary before?
I guess we weren't aware of the permitted development beforehand, so there wasn't a trigger in that sense. And it's our duty to place preservation orders on in the interest of amenity. And as I've illustrated, the site is visible from public footpaths, and so the impact of this development will be to increase what we've identified as harms. And increase the effects on the woodland, and therefore, in my view, required protection.
You want to come back?
Thank you, Chairman. Then this triggers my question to Case Officer or Mr. Dre, that if it was not known to the tree officer that degradation is happening even with the permitted development, would that trigger to review the permitted development which is happening for 28 days a year? I'm not sure. So if the permitted development, the current one, is having degradation or causing an impact, would that also trigger that review of that permitted development?
The permitted development rights are set nationally. We can't affect that. So there's temporary permitted development rights to carry out a wide variety of uses without planning permission for up to 28 days a year. And the applicant at the moment is exercising those PD rights to fit in the weddings that you've heard. So we can't review that. I suppose the point that's being made is the ecologist and the tree officer we have a use that is already taking place at a certain level, and they've been able to see it in action, and obviously you've had things pointed out to you that the impacts of that, and that with a planning permission to go beyond 28 days a year, we expect intensification of that and greater impacts. We accept the numbers that are given are approximate numbers. We're looking at the worst case scenarios, absolutely. But the key point is that there will be significant intensification from what we've already witnessed. Does that answer?
Okay. Councillor Foot and then Councillor Wollaston.
Chair, I think Councillor Wollaston was in before me, weren't you? I think. No, no. Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, my question is to Lauren, the case officer. Could I ask, had I got this correct, that when I read through this application, if this committee were minded to go against officer's recommendation, the application would automatically be referred to the Secretary of State? Have I got that correct? And if so, could you just clarify that for the committee? Thanks.
I think I'll let Bob Dre answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a direction in certain circumstances where we're looking to grant permission where we have to advise the Secretary of State of that and give them an opportunity to consider whether they call it in to be determined. And there's a relatively recent amendment to that order to include development affecting ancient woodland. So I think if the basis that our judgment is that it would harm the ancient woodland, yes, we would have to give them 21 days. I think the normal requirement is to consider whether or not they're happy with that local decision and the reasons given, or whether they want to call it in for their own determination.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Hey, right, Councillor Wollaston.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to see if there's any way we can differentiate between the appeal decision in Linus Wood and the current application. We've already found out tonight on the other application that the MPPF has changed since, in this case, 2022. Have there been any impacts from that?
Bob, I think you might have more experience in terms of the history on ancient woodland. I don't believe there's been significant change.
I think we've obviously, the appeal is, we're not carbon copying the appeal. We have obviously done our own assessment of it as presented. We're including the appeal because we do think there are strong similarities and we think it illustrates the point about the very high bar that's required. So I can't say off the top of my head what specifically changed in policy terms, but our reason for including it is to illustrate that high bar in terms of wholly exceptional.
May I have a further question? It's in terms of the use of the ancient woodland as is. As we were driving in and out, I could see there's obviously and I know there's a very large pheasant shoot there on this estate, and it's shot quite regularly, and I could see some very large pens in there. Now, I'd imagine that's also going to have an impact on the ancient woodlands. I just wonder whether there's any comment on that, or whether we're perhaps overreacting to one particular use, which is already being affected by another.
Possibly it is obviously conceivable that uses without planning permission that may or not that don't otherwise need planning permission could deteriorate the landscape. Obviously, at the moment, we are just considering this planning application, so we've got to confine our considerations to the impact of this particular proposal.
Thank you.
Further questions? No. Okay, right. Well, we come to the big debate. So, who is the member that's going to open the debate? Right, Councillor Abb.
Yeah, but it's interesting, very interesting. Coming into this whole thing, I was, I have a great deal of respect for the ward member and their experience in this area. So obviously not predetermined, but certainly looking at this, thinking, yeah, economics in the countryside. I'm should be behind that. I am behind that actually, but unfortunately, we are a victim of what the rules are, in my mind. And when we have an aggregate ruling in terms of percentage of certainty from 3 officers, it's not one. Sometimes we get one officer saying, oh, not for me, but 3 is pretty unusual. And that, unfortunately, has to sway. An ancient woodland, as everybody keeps talking about, it's it's going, and in this case, has already been affected by what's happening. Not because I think it was deliberate, it's just what it is. I also looked at the, I was a bit surprised when we were on site. People remember it's being called a tent, the ceremony tent. I thought a definition of a tent was something covered in canvas and so on. That's not a tent. That's a semi-permanent building with concrete footings in the ground. So whilst I understand, why that might appeal from a business perspective, I can't see that it's really helping the ancient woodland in which it sits. So I think, obviously, as always, listen to the debate, but I've gone from being positive towards this and going against Officer Vice, in fact, being the opposite now. And it'd be a hard one to say all the officers are wrong.
Thanks, Ramakraj. And then, do you have your hand up? Sorry, Councillor Foot. Sorry, no, you didn't. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to come from a point of this economic benefit or disbenefit or not having benefit if we don't have this application going through, because we would not have the benefits of employment, the viability of the farm itself, as mentioned by the landowner. They wouldn't be able to contribute to the wider community. It's like a situation where we are having this application with all the officers with due respect and their knowledge, and we are just taking that knowledge. But I'm just thinking, it's like there is a venue which is still there and it's operating within the permitted development 28 days a year, and we are looking at an application which will just only extend that. So whatever harm it's happening, it's already there, it's happening. All we have to ensure is that the landowners are coming up or are telling us that they will come up with a woodland management plan, they will work with officers to mitigate this, and they will offset any loss, or in their own words, it's like they will contribute to the further planting or increasing the woodland space. So I'm just thinking, is if we as a West Berkshire Council looking to see the economic viability of these farms and lands have to be maintained, and we will not allow the institutional landowners taking advantage of the system and build something different, then it's better for us to give it to the landowners who know the best. And that's where my argument is, where I've heard all of these arguments, where it's better for us to work with the landowners who've been there, in this case, for more than 400 years, than to, in the future, maybe a corporate company, landowners. Maybe they may not meet this from this country. So it's not that I'm trying to say like there is no harm. There is harm according to officers, but we need to look at a perspective of where that harm is coming from. The harm is already there to some extent, and the harm could be that it could be mitigated. So I would ask our members to look at the perspective of not just, okay, there is harm and percentages, because the percentages from the question from Councillor Apps is, it's not technical or from analysis. There is no extensive analysis. It's just off the cuff remarks from the officers that there is numbers thrown at. Are we going to decide on this application just by that 5 minutes of argument, 5 minutes of discussion, deliberation from the officers? I don't think so. There should be detailed analysis of the harm. The percentages, I will question why 75%, why not 74, why it's 70, not 76. So I'm not going to take that as an argument to say just the percentages will sway. And as I said, to conclude, I won't go into any further. We should look at the mitigation of the harm and how to work with the landowners and the loss of potential jobs and loss of maybe it's just more harm from that loss perspective, the economic benefits loss, that is more concerning for me.
Thank you very much for your views, Councillor Ramakraj. Right, Councillor Gaines, then Councillor Wollaston.
Thank you, Chairman. Ancient woodland, I understand, is over 400 years old. it's our duty to make sure that that woodland continues to be ancient woodland and not be cleared. And I understand that the economic arguments about why we should have this site there, but to my mind, you're never going to get that woodland back again, well, at least for another 400 years. The other thing is, we have just submitted and actually adopted the local plan. If we immediately go against officers' recommendations on this one, we are actually going against SP 1, 2, 5, 7, 10 and 11 of that local plan. Surely we're supposed to be upholding the SPs in that local plan and not going against them. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Woolston.
It's not often I completely agree with Councillor Armitage, but I do. I think there's a massive economic benefit to this scheme. It's interesting, I think there was not a single objector. It clearly will be generating employment, it will be assisting the estate, which in turn will also generate employment. And we clearly have an estate owner here who is very considerate of the countryside, woodlands and so forth. As far as I was concerned, highways is irrelevant. No one's going to go to a wedding and by public transport or walk to it. They're going to go either in a coach or they're going to go in a taxi or a car. So that, I think, is a complete red herring. Overall, then, I'm actually very sympathetic to this application, and I still haven't made a mind up finally, but I'm inclining towards going against the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you for those views. Right, Councillor Dick.
Thank you, Chairman. Economics, strong. Community, strong. Recognising a well-run and important estate in our community, strong. But I'm going to finish with a rhetorical question. How do you replant an ancient woodland?
Thank you, Councillor Dick. Councillor Foot.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I mean, obviously, I've heard the arguments put forward by colleagues. With our first application we heard this morning, there was a compliment given to the quality of the report that was written. May I, Chair, compliment this report, because I found when I read it, it was balanced and it was informative. I found it helped me a lot. And so I know a remark was made that officers sometimes do off-the-cuff remarks. I don't accept that, to be perfectly honest. So forgive me for mentioning that. This is an extremely difficult situation because we've heard the extreme difficulties the farm is going through, the farming community throughout the country is going through. But it's quite clear that the reports submitted by the ecology officer and the tree officer flag up grave concerns about this irreplaceable ancient woodland, which is, you know, disappearing before our eyes throughout the country. And I would urge the applicant to try and look at ways of truly mitigating this. And in my opinion, it wouldn't be to increase the number of weddings at that venue. The final thing I want to say is that if we do go against officers' recommendations and we approve this application, it's going to find its way onto the desk of the Secretary of State. So they are going to look at that. And we've just heard from Bob Dre that the ancient woodlands now forms part of that remit. So I think in my opinion, we can't go against officers' recommendation, and I would be quite happy to propose that we accept the officers' recommendation, and with a heavy heart, admittedly, I would be prepared to say that we refuse this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Does that find a seconder? It does. Okay. Do you need to include anything in the proposer as Bob, at all, or anything
No, if it's,
members need to consider?
so the proposal is then refusing on the grounds set out on page 60, members, which includes the ancient woodland, the highways, the ecology, and fond diversification, which is kind of wraps around all of that.
You're happy with that? Yeah, okay. Anything, if that's the case, we've had a proposer and a seconder. Show of hands for that resolution. All those in favour? Against? That is carried 5-2. Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you very much for attending. As you noted, it was quite a thorough debate, and there's a lot of interesting points to come forward tonight. And from the chair, I would suggest strongly take note of some of the comments that have been made, and perhaps we might see an application come forward again in a different direction at some stage. So thank you very much. Members, it's 21:25. We've got one other application which is probably not so intense as what we've just gone through. Do you wish to have a recess for 5 minutes or continue on?
Perhaps 2 minutes.
Yes, okay. All right.
3 minutes.
Okay, members, we are going to reconvene. And then we're obviously moving on to the third application, which is item 4 on the agenda. And the application is 24/01651/FUL 2 Burfields, East Garston, obviously Hungerford, and to the postal address. I'm going to straight over to invite Bob to introduce the application. So Bob, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay. So members, this application is before you tonight due to the level of objection. As the Chairman described, the site is 2 Burfords in East Garston, and the proposal is for a replacement dwelling. And we are recommending approval. All right. There we go. Okay, so there you can see the location plan showing the application site on the right here. It's on the corner of the Burfords and Front Street through the historic settlement. These are the constraints. So if you can make out the site with a black dot there on the corner, the black line is the settlement boundary of the village. The yellow line is the conservation area. So the site's outside of it, but as you can see the measurement there, it's some 120 metres down the road, or if you measure a bit more directly through those buildings, it's about 75 metres, 75, 80 metres away. And the lime green buildings, you can see there are listed buildings. So you can see a few down the road to the west, but most importantly, also immediately adjacent to the site on the right. This is the building behind a hedge, as you can see it there, but it's a single-storey bungalow of relatively modern construction. You can see the listed building I just mentioned to the right there. And that's just a bit set a bit further back, so you can see it kind of matches the building opposite. The Burford is dominated by is characterised by bungalows, whereas along Front Street you have quite a wide mix of 2-storey, single-storey, a lot of traditional dwellings. That's just taken from street view. It's some years old, but it's just a clearer picture to see the building and its relationship to next door. And then look in the other direction. So it's number 1 in the background there. And then you can see some of the listed buildings just beyond in the other direction. And looking down to the east, with the site on the left just there. And looking back on the other way, so the site's on the on the right-hand side there. You can see the junction into Burfords. This is taken from the Burfords, so you can see the side of the existing bungalow, the 2-storey listed building behind, and the garage associated with this property. And then just to the left there is the neighbouring dwelling, which turning to face it there. So that's on the Burfords. So the application site, like I said, is within the settlement boundary, within the national landscape, down the road from the conservation area with listed buildings close by. So obviously key is a sensitive site in that respect. The existing bungalow is approximately 5 metres to the ridge with 2.5 metre high eaves. And like I said, Burfords is characterised by bungalows and the Front Street a mix. Just by way of the proposal, originally came in as a 2-storey dwelling, but it's been amended during the course of the application to reduce the height, reduce the eaves, and make a kind of a chalet bungalow style 2-storey, 1.5-storey type dwelling to try and reduce the impact. Just purely by way of background, there was a planning permission granted for extensions to the existing bungalow back in 2012 for what is essentially the same design that is now proposed as a replacement dwelling. That permission has now expired, so it isn't a fallback position that they could implement, but it is obviously, from a consistency point of view, just relevant background. So yeah, there you can see how it's Originally, the original two-storey dwelling was 8.5 metres to the ridge. Following officer advice, it was reduced, as you can see there, and it's now 7.4 metres. I think as we saw on the site, it sits just below the height of the listed building next door. We are, just to be clear, only considering the amended scheme, so on the right there, but I'm just providing that so you can see how the narrative has changed. So there are the proposed plans and elevations. The southern elevation there you can see is fronting the street with this single-storey projection coming out. And you can again see that down here on the ground floor plan, site plan. The east elevation is the one that will be facing the neighbouring property. Note there's obviously no windows at first floor level. It's quite common at ground floor level to have side windows. To the rear, the north, facing the Burfords, you have this cat slide roof with Felix windows in. So that's seeking to address the transition in scale to the bungalows to the rear, and also protect the amenity of the property behind. And then you can see the western elevation facing the side facing the Burfords. And you've also got there's a single-storey garage store building proposed at the back. Under these proposals, there is this link between the two, which wasn't there on the previous house extension. Okay. So the consultation responses are set out on page 77 of your report. You'll note that the parish council has objected to the revised plans. Their comments are there, but essentially it's to do with, appreciate it's a similar footprint, but it's obviously quite a substantial increase in size, doubling the size approximately. Concern for the precedent for the other properties along Burford, and that this could lead to further similar developments behind, and that it would reduce the number of small and affordable homes in the parish. We haven't received any technical objections from the various other consultees, and there are 13 public objections, and their comments are summarised on page 78. So in terms of the merits, it's obviously set out in the reports. I'll be very brief, but the principle is generally acceptable, given that we're in settlement. On page 81, the case officer, who's also a professional conservation officer, has given you an assessment of the impact on the character and appearance of the area. Clearly, it has a strong rural character and historic character. But her view is that it respects the scale and character along Front Street, which is where it's mainly addressing. Notes that the low eaves and the cat slides provide a good transition to the rest of Burford's behind. They're satisfied that there's an appropriate use of materials, which are set out in paragraph 6.14. Walls are being rendered, tile hangings, and pitch roof covered in plain tiles. And their view is that it would sit comfortably within the historic street scene. And the garage and store building to the rear are considered acceptable in terms of their siting, scale and design. I think they wanted me to emphasise the building line here. So you can see the listed building to the right. It's obviously the front is set, like the existing building is set back from the front building line. There is a single-storey projection that's coming forward, but it doesn't go as far as the front of the neighbouring listed building, so it's set back in that respect. As set on the report, it's considered it's been designed in a way to safeguard neighbouring amenity, so acceptable from a highway perspective in terms of providing enough parking spaces. There's no objection in terms of flood risk. It's flood zone 1. There is some risk of groundwater flooding in the area, but an appropriate flood risk assessment has been provided to satisfy that. Yes, it is in the nutrient neutrality within the nutrient neutrality zone, but because it's a replacement dwelling, it's like for like the impact, so it's considered neutral. Yes, so they are the key issues. Just turning to the update report, there is following the comments on the site visit, because of the tight nature of Front Street, it was suggested that a construction method statement will be appropriate, and we're happy to support that. So we've recommended that additional condition in the update report. So given the principle's acceptable, it's felt the key issue is how it fits in with the historic street scene, and the conservation, the case officer is satisfied in that respect, and therefore we are recommending it for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks very much, Bob. Any comments, Paul?
No, Chairman, the proposal before us complies to all standards and requirements. No objection. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just looking at the time, it's 20 to 10. Shall I wait a few minutes before I put the motion about possible extension? Let's do it now. Okay, right. You're going to propose we extend. Okay, second. All in favour? Right, okay, just in case. Okay, now I call upon the parish council representative.
Thank you. I won't need 5 minutes. Obviously, it's a hard act to follow from what Mr. Dre has just said. But from the council's perspective, and obviously, as you saw, there are a number of complaints from the village about the change of the outlook of the house, and the fact that, in fact, we have a unique close of 12 affordable bungalows. And I say bungalows because that is unique in the village, and certainly difficult to replicate that sort of setup in a number of villages. And being affordable is something else that we're concerned about, and want people to sort of live in the village and continue to live in the village. So our concern is obviously the change of character and appearance, and the fact that obviously if this could be set precedents for other bungalows within that close to put in applications and change the complete look of the environment, both from a character point of view and affordability point of view. And that's it from me.
Thank you. Questions at all? You're right. Councillor Williston. Councillor.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I should have gone up the Burfords and I didn't. But from what I can see from the plan, most plots look a lot smaller than this plot. Am I right in that?
No. There are a couple of plots of a similar size, and there is work going on to improve and renovate a number of the bungalows, but all maintaining the bungalow status and the footprint that they've already got.
Okay.
Councillor Gaines.
Yes, I did go up the whole place, and there are sites, there are units that are larger. My question is, and you may not be able to answer this because I actually asked one of the ladies on site who was also a parish councillor. The application that came through in 2012 was for a to actually extend the bungalow by half a storey. Do you know of whether the parish council objected at that point?
I don't know. I didn't move to the village until 2015, so I wasn't in the village.
So you
then.
definitely won't know.
So
Okay,
I
thank
definitely
you.
don't know. And certainly, but having spoken to some people, I'm not aware of that being the case. I don't know.
Okay, because that application was actually approved, so I just wondered if anybody objected.
I
Thank
don't
you.
know. I can't understand.
There don't seem to be any other questions. Okay. Right. Okay. You return to the public bench. Now, the ward member, of course, is Clive Hooker, who's away. He hasn't gone and registered. He's coming on Zoom, is he? No. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we move straight over to questions of officers. Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, I do have one for Bob. Thank you. You said like for like nutrient neutrality, bungalow to house. How many bedrooms was the first and how many is the current?
I can double check that, but in terms
Is it the
of,
same number of bedrooms?
I don't think so. I'll double check in a second. But in terms of nutrient neutrality, it's a general view taken by Natural England across the board that replacement dwellings are just can be excluded on that basis.
Okay, so it's just obviously
house extensions, they're excluded because some will get bigger, some will get, they will fluctuate.
Okay, so it's nothing I need to worry about. It's not a technical issue.
A site specific.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Consideration.
Councillor Dick.
Probably for Mr. Dre. Do you know the answer to Councillor Gaines' question?
I'm told they did object to the
Did or
original
didn't?
the previous application.
Sorry,
Did.
did. Oh, thank you. That's it.
No further questions? Okay. Looking around the table, who's opening debate? Councillor Gaines?
Well, because the previous application was actually approved back in 2012, and it was for actually a building that was going to be extended rather than actually a new one, and because the new one is not gone any further forward on that against that listed building, I actually can't see how we could object, to be honest.
Okay, so that's a formal proposal.
I'm happy to propose to go with officers' recommendations.
Councillor.
And I'm disappointed to find myself agreeing once again with Councillor Gaines and for exactly the reasons she's given, and I would happily second her proposal if she'll have me. Thank you.
Okay, and
of course,
do we need to add anything which has already been
as per the report?
Right, Councillor.
Well, potentially. During the site visit, the parish council did say, is there any chance of restoring the gate? Yeah. So do we have any chance of restoring?
It wasn't, weren't we?
Well, I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea.
So that, I mean, if we, can we or can't we? It's just returning the original line to its actual original format, which at the moment it's got. I mean, I'm quite why the parish council wanted it, I wasn't sure, but I think it was balanced.
Your personal views. Yeah.
Oh, that was it. She said it would balance the gates left and right of the entrance. So,
was that the same point?
No, different point, Chairman. I think I won't add any new points. I was not prepared to speak, but I just wanted to address parish council, having a lot of respect for parish council, being one of parish council member. So I just want to address a point that it could set a precedent. By approving this, we are not setting a precedent. Each application will be addressed on its own merit. So it is a standalone application. So to parish council, this wouldn't open a floodgates. If at all, then it would be considered separately. So yeah.
It is possible to put on a condition to agree the hard landscaping of a site, but we haven't recommended it because we don't think it's directly related to this application because it's the existing situation. But if members feel that it is, you do have policies which do talk about good design and the wider landscaping of a site. So if you think it is necessary, then it's not an unreasonable condition to put on, in my view.
I would be very happy to include that in my proposal, that the gate be reinstated.
So what we would do there is a condition saying before it's first occupied to submit details of the hard landscaping of the site, and then it obviously be carried out in accordance
to the street scene. Yeah, registration of the gate to conform to the symmetry of the street scene.
Okay.
I managed to say that.
And I see the nod from the seconder. Okay, members, right. Can we then have a formal vote on the proposal as stated? Right, all in favour? All for? Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your attendance. Thank you very much, officers, for your attendance and support. And members, and that's 21:49, I formally close the planning meeting of July 2025.